Ladies, gentlemen, friends beyond the binary, welcome to the Reactor. For today, October 2nd, 2020. I don't know how the hell we got all the way to October so fast. Hey everybody, my name is Tristan Johnson. I'm the host of the YouTube channel Step Back History, and I wanted to let you know that I run 3 streams a week, and I want to tell you about them all right now. Monday, I do a show called The Monday Discourse, in which I talk about comings and goings on the internet with my guest, Mia Mulder. That runs from 12 to 2 Eastern Time. Tuesdays, from 7 to 10, I do Step Back Tonight, which is sort of like a chill-out, relaxed stream. Very fun. And what you're watching right now, The Reactor, where people send me stuff via Discord and Twitter, and I collect it, and we watch it together and react. On top of that, extra special today is that I saw that there's a Mia Mulder video coming out in about an hour, so maybe we will quickly take a break to watch that one live, because Mia Mulder is a good old friend of the stream. I go by he, him pronouns. And my work can be found at stepbackhistory.com and tristanwon'tshutup.com. Next I want to mention is, if you have Amazon Prime, you're catching up on The Boys Season 2, I would highly recommend that you use your one free Twitch subscription in, what's it called? To help out a independent Twitch creator. It could be anybody, but if you do choose Step Back, I'll be very grateful. You know, cats being fed, rent being paid, all of those things. So yeah, if you don't use your Amazon Prime free Twitch subscription, it actually Amazon just gets to keep that money. So please send his money, or send Jeff Bezos' money our way at no extra cost to you. My latest video on Tristan Won't Shut Up is about planned economies and why planned economies are good, actually. And the latest Step Back video is on Emma Goldman. Interesting thing to point out, this is, I think, a new thing, but shows just how my channels are on very different trajectories. And that is, the new Tristan Won't Shut Up video, which came out on Tuesday, already has more views than the Emma Goldman video, which came out a week ago today. So I feel like, and it also just passed 5,000 subscribers, which makes me think that I'm not super duper far away from a point where Tristan Won't Shut Up is going to be a more successful YouTube channel than Step Back, because you know, as it currently stands, with the performance of 2 videos that came out around the same time, it already is. So that's fun. My next video for Tristan Won't Shut Up should be coming out sometime next week. I'm doing it. I'm going to have some real conversation with myself on Sunday about how I'm going to structure it, because some stuff has come up that by like what ended up was going to be like one video is probably going to be several videos, given the interview that I did with one of my friends who's an expert on the topic. So we'll see where things go, because I've got a lot of things that I could talk about. But generally it'll be the first episode in a series that I'm calling The Posting Wars, which is basically about social media and political discourse, and how the mechanisms for how things got the way they are, how they work, and why they work the way they do. So look forward to seeing a few of those over the weeks. And yeah, my next Step Back video is going to be Dinesh D'Souza Endgame, which I am also terrified about the prospect of making. So that's everything. This has been one fucking hell of a week, I will tell you. That new Mexi video came to me with only a couple days to work on it, and it took more time than I anticipated. So it was so that plus the Tristan Won't Shut Up video, double whammy. Plus last week making the Emma Goldman video. All of that stuff together has been meaning that I've been putting in a lot of hours of work. A lot of hours of work. And, you know, now I'm kind of coming up on a weekend, and we just got a general order from the provincial government to basically stop going outside again. So we'll see what happens this weekend. Basically, to not be in close contact with anybody who isn't a member of your household. So there's that. So let's see what's going on in the chat here. Sounds like Crab Rave. That was Crab Rave to celebrate the fact that Donald Trump has COVID-19, that I am unabashedly happy to see happen. Let's see. How did we get to the 21st century so fast? Let's see. Nitrous oxide, baby. Works on time machines, too. Oh, boy. I'm worried I might have put too many animal vids in the reactor. I try to do one for every serious vid I put in. Well, I just did the math, actually, shortly before the stream 255, and I found that you submitted 79% of all the links I received. So I'm going to have to alternate so that other people can get a chance to have their links looked at too. So I had to make a separate 255 list just so that I don't, just so that the prodigious amount of links that you submit will not drown out everybody else being able to submit. So I'm sure it's fine. I do like cute animal videos though. We have seen that. All right. What else we got in the chat going on? I really like the Emmett Goldman. She's super underrated. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate it. And thank you, Sapphire885, for subscribing. Much appreciated. That's all really great. I'm down for cute animal videos. They are good. What's it called? Palate cleansers between other videos that make me sad. Which I know, like, it's the audience I've cultivated because I don't think I've made a step back video that hasn't made me sad or isn't like I get a feeling like people's, like, I'm fueling a lot of doomer energy with my videos quite often. Except for like the Emma Goldman video. Emma Goldman had like endless hope, but I get what's it called? My videos do better the more doomer I get, so I have to like I have a reputation to maintain or something. You created an article for Mia in Swedish Wikipedia. Thought it had been marked, though it has been marked of not of encyclopedic value. Ah, damn. Sounds like the video is winding down. Is there a LeftTube wiki? There must be. I know there are wikis for more obscure things. Maybe. I can't believe he declared it so late at night. I choose the right to not get addicted to civilization. I'm curious about this whole like Trump having COVID thing, because also he hasn't tweeted all day, and there's like two strains of thought that you can go with, which is one, they're downplaying how bad it is because it's really bad, and that Donald Trump might be dying, which would be, you know, be fucking awesome. And the second was is that he's pretending to have COVID to, you know, as some sort of like 4D chess way of totally beaten, what's it called, to say that COVID ain't no thing. But the fact is, I think that he wouldn't have had to admit that he has COVID if he didn't feel like he needed to get ahead of the story, which makes me think that he's pretty seriously ill. And he probably, at least, will not be able to do the debate in a week and a bit. We'll see. But it also could be possible that Trump... Because Trump is, like, got a lot of risk factors. He's overweight. He's in his 70s. He eats nothing but McDonald's. So he has a lot of the risk factors that could mean that he could die from this, or he stands a reasonable chance to die of this. All right. Yeah. I really liked the Walmart video, but the Emma Goldman one more so. I found that it lacked discussion of centralized versus decentralized planning and how that would have worked democratically. Do you think if Walmart was a co-op, things would change in terms of planning? I still, like, I got a lot of comments to that degree, like, oh, but these companies are bad, therefore everything about them is bad, but, like, it doesn't say any, like, they don't, like, and also about, like, centralization versus distributive economic, or distributed planned economics. I think that's, like, you know, a place to open up the conversation, but I think that, like, I was trying to, the video is already very long, and I wasn't trying to say too much in a single video, you know? So, the idea behind the Tristan Won't Shut Up video was that I could, you know, say my piece that markets are not good and that planned economies are good. And and since the video is doing so well, we could have more of a conversation about, you know, distributed networks versus centralized networks, etc., etc., etc. I kind of wanted to go into a coma because then the GOP would be stuck with a vegetable on the ballot. Oh my, that would be weird. There's a lot of uncharted waters this whole session. We'll see what happens. I think I already saw that there's a conspiracy theory that this is some sort of underhanded way for Mike Pence to sort of coup the presidency so they don't have to deal with Donald Trump anymore. So there's already weird conspiracies being dredged up. So let's see where that all goes. All right. And also, it came out like the same day that it turned out that Melania Trump doesn't like Christmas decorations or some weird thing. I don't remember some leaked footage of her speaking also made like a thing. Man, there's somebody in here who has the username This Historian is mad, and I feel like that I should be suing for copyright infringement because Mad Historian is sort of my whole shtick. It's because I lost the jacket. That's how I'm no longer historian because I don't have a tweed jacket anymore. Anyways, we're gonna watch a video now. This is called How They Did It: Pet Dogs in Ancient Rome, and I'm gonna turn off the music and change the camera.
Welcome to How They Did It, a show where we take a look at the daily lives of our ancestors. Now, typically, we focus on how humans have experienced the roller coaster of history, but today, I figured we'd include a special guest who's been with us through thick and thin over the years. Man's best friend. For millennia, dogs have watched as we curiously changed tongue and appearance. But whatever the situation, they've always been by our sides, ready for adventures or napping. Today, we'll be taking a look at the lives of pet dogs in ancient Rome. When we peer back into antiquity, we can find all kinds of dogs appearing in literature, mythology, and artwork. Just as today, they came in many shapes, sizes, and colors. Though these would have seemed familiar to us, it's important to remember that there were indeed differences, as many of the modern breeds we commonly interact with today only date back a few centuries. Dog breeds in the past can be categorized by the various roles they filled. These included prominent types, such as hunting dogs, guard dogs, house dogs, and lap dogs. The list goes on to include a wide range of other roles, such as herders.
I remember hearing something about lap dogs that they were bred to basically. There's two things I've heard. One is that they were bred to be like flea magnets, so that fleas didn't stay on people; they would go on the dogs, which doesn't seem too likely to me. But the other thing I heard is that they were basically for warmth. Like, you got a lap dog so that you could have it in bed with you, or you could have it on your lap, so that when it was cold, you had a warm thing that you could hang on to. Which, like, maybe. The chart he showed native people developing after the medieval period. Yeah, that's not good. Where was that?
the Roman writer Gradius provides some interesting details on what we might expect on this front. Quote, "Dogs belong to 1,000 lands, and they each have characteristics derived from their origin. The Median dog, though undisciplined, is a great fighter, and great glory exalts the far distant Celtic dogs. Those of the Galloni, on the..."
I want those like cholo dogs. I know Kelly would like rather die than have me have one of these dogs, but they're like hairless black dogs that the Aztecs believed were like the shepherds to the underworld.
On the other hand, shirka combat and dislike fighting, but they have wise instincts. The Persian is quick in both respects. Some rear Mastiff dogs, a breed of unmanageable ferocity, but the Lycaonians, on the other hand, are easy-tempered and big in limb. The Hyrcanian dog, however, is not content with all the energy belonging to his stock. The females of their own kind will seek unions with wild beasts in the woods. And what if you visit the Straits of the Morini,
The hairless
tide
dogs,
swept
yeah.
by a wayward sea, and choose to penetrate even among the Britons? Oh, how great...
My brain wants to say that they're called cholo dogs, but I think they have a different name. I think they're like it's a Nahuatl name, but I can't remember exactly what it is.
Your reward, how great your gain beyond any outlays. If you are not bent on looks and deceptive graces, at any rate, when serious work has come, when bravery must be shown, and the impetuous war god calls in the utmost hazard, then you could not admire the renowned Molossians so much. Apparently, one of the most popular breeds was a Miletan. This was a small, fluffy lap dog with a fox-like pointed nose, upright triangular ears, and a tail curled up over its back, similar to modern-day miniature Spitz-type dogs. Though cute and cuddly, we hear several authors complain that such spoiled toy dogs could be badly behaved and quite yappy. When it came to raising...
Okay, so it's Choloitzcuinitl. That, I think Cholo is like the nickname they have now because it's a mouthful of a name for a breed of dog.
The available breeds, your average Roman would go through many of the same steps as we do today. One of the most important first steps would be to name a new puppy. For context, we can turn to the writings of the famous Greek historian Xenophon. He maintains that the best names were short, just 1 or 2 syllables, so that the dog can easily be called. As suitable names, he lists 46, which include such popular choices as Lurcher,
Need my
Whitey,
fidget cube.
Blackie, Tawny,
Blackie,
Blue,
oh God.
Blossom, Keeper, Fencer, Butcher, Spoiler, Hasty, Hurry, Stubborn, Yelp, Tracker, Dash, Happy, Jolly, Trooper, Rockdove, Growler, Fury, Riot, Lance, Pellmell, Plucky, Killer, Crafty, Swift, and Dagger. Some others mentioned by the poet Ovid include Barker, Whirlwind, Storm, Bear, Greedy, Deer Slayer, Shaggy, and Spot.
Oh, there it is.
Once a dog was named,
So
it would
the
be
ancient
trained.
dogs were also
Many
called
basic
Spot?
commands were likely taught, such
Jeez.
as sit, stay, come, and heel. Additional skills were then taught based on the dog's specific role. Hunting dogs, for instance, would be trained to work as a team and return small prey undamaged. Guard dogs would be trained to bark and growl at intruders, and lap dogs would be trained to perform a wide range of amusing tricks for entertainment. Whatever the training, it was recommended
You guys
that
are gonna
dogs be
force me to
rewarded, either in the form
Pay
of
way
food
too much
or
money to get a
praise.
dog that I probably
The
shouldn't
historian
get.
Arian states that one should pat one's dog, caress its head by pulling gently on the ears, and speak its name along with a hearty word or two. Good boy. Good girl. But of course, these activities were just a small part of a dog's life. Much of their time was spent doing things we would be familiar with today. Going for walks, chasing animals, begging for food, getting in trouble, playing fetch, cuddling, and
These are
taking
some
long
pretty cute
naps.
drawings.
Really, things haven't changed so much since then. Just as today, people and dogs formed close bonds that
I
lasted
thought
a lifetime.
Invicta only did like
The
war
passing
videos.
of a pet could take quite the toll, and we have many records of individuals grieving for the loss of their companion. What I find particularly touching are the tombs and epitaphs left in remembrance of these loved ones. I'll read you a
Wow.
selection that I find quite touching. To Helena, foster child, soul without comparison, and deserving of praise. Mia never barked without reason, but now he is silent. My eyes were wet with tears, our little dog, when I bore you to the grave. So Patricus,
So there were
never-
like people who obsessively spoiled their dogs and anthropomorphized them to a really weird degree even back then, hey?
Never again shall you give me 1,000 kisses. Never can you be contentedly in my lap. In sadness have I buried you, and you deservest. In a resting place of marble, I have put you for all time by the side of my shade. In your qualities, you were sagacious as a human being.
Sounds like a very
me,
good boy.
What a love companion we have lost. Here the stone says it holds the white dog from Melita, the most faithful guardian of Eumelus. Bull they called him while he was yet alive, but now his voice is imprisoned in the silent pathways of the night.
Oh man.
You who pass by,
This is super
if
emotional.
you see this monument, laugh not, I pray, though it is a dog's grave. Tears fell for me, and dust was heaped above me by a master's hand. I am in tears while carrying you to your last resting place, as much as I rejoiced when bringing you home in my own hands 15 years ago. I'll admit, reading these passages for the first time brought tears to my eyes. I lost a dog of my own not too long ago, and I can viscerally feel the sorrow carved into each and every word.
It's intense.
But at the same time, I have to appreciate that this shared loss
For a video about
puts me in
doggos
touch with someone from thousands of years
in the
ago
ancient world.
to a degree that is really impossible.
It does go to show how like there's something pretty immortal about our bond with dogs specifically. And that, cause like my mom, so like I had a dog, like my parents had a dog that died a few years ago now. Like I think like maybe in 2016 or maybe 2017 he died. And they were telling me that it's like way harder to lose a dog than to lose a cat, and I was like, I don't know, because I've never actually had a dog, so I actually have no idea. But damn.
Any other way. I think we all too often see the past as cold, remote, and even inhuman. I hope that in this video, I've been able to shed some light on the universality of the human experience, and in particular, celebrate a friendship that transcends time. I'd like to thank our supporters on Patreon who made this video possible.
That was adorable. Well, it was also sad, but it was adorable. All right, let's see. What do we got next in the hopper? This is Mulan 2020, Rise of the Mary Sue by Manga Common. So let's see what this is. Cats are just perlites, dogs are family. Oh my. I don't know what this is. Somebody put this in, so I don't know who. This is by, Manga Common. I don't know anything about this channel. I don't know what we're going to do. Hopefully nobody gives a shit about spoilers for Mulan 2020. If it's bad, I can just skip it. Man, somebody paid $30 for this goddamn movie.
Well, that certainly was a thing. So, I just watched the mess of a film that the live-action adaptation of Mulan, and while it was as much of a garbage fire as I was expecting...
Oh no! They're stealing the tire fire!
I still wouldn't call it a good movie. There are some fun things about it if you turn your brain off. And if I wanted to watch some decent choreography, I'd stick with my Japanese tokusatsu shows.
Hey, this is like a lot. This is like, what's it called? Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon levels of like weird, what's it called? Weird like martial arts. Can you imagine how rich you have to be to have a stone carving of your dog made for a grave? Yeah, for sure.
At least the characters have some personality. Then there's the cinematography, which can be decent, but unfortunately some of it was made no bloody sense considering the context of some of the locations. And Disney pretty much showing that they belong to the Chinese overlords. It really bites. I understand that Mushu being taken out because he apparently was offensive to the Chinese audiences, but I mean, well, apparently the remake still offended Chinese audiences, so on a worse scale. Good job there, Disney.
You did it. Good job. I can't believe it. I'm proud of you.
Back to my point, while Mushu is gone and what we got was the Phoenix. Ugh. Like, is this what you really want to replace Mushu with?
That was foul. You owe me big.
Look, unless
If I remember correctly, phoenixes are not from Chinese mythology. Aren't they from, like, Middle Eastern mythology or Greek mythology or something?
that Phoenix is actually this guy, you've already lost me. But the biggest issue from what I saw could have been Mulan herself and how they pretty much watered down her character from the original animated film. The original Mulan was a young woman who didn't have any training skills but had to work hard to become a soldier and eventually a hero, and not even using brute strength like the rest of the cast. She used her brain, showing that brain can be even better than brawn. She was going up against challenges that women in the time period it's depicted in wouldn't be able to do so, and going up against a patriarchal society just so she could help her father. And Mulan proved that she was just as, if not more so, capable than any man, especially since she used her brains. That's a good message for all kids and some adults to learn. That no matter what, if you work hard enough, you can accomplish your goals, despite what shortcomings you may or may not have. Or if that doesn't tickle your fancy, that just because there's a direct and more physical route, that doesn't mean you neglect your smarts. Hell, in the original film, she hardly fights. She uses her brains. Like how she defeated Shan Yu. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, so... ugh.
It looks like you're out of ideas.
Not quite. Ready,
It's
Mushu?
true. That is kind of the thing that made Mulan good. And yeah, they did kind of take it away. It seems, anyway.
Get off the roof, get off the roof, get off the roof.
There is a Chinese phoenix called Fen Huang. Okay.
Not for Mulan 2020!
Dishonor! Dishonor on your whole family!
As it turns out, Mulan's already got magical chi powers and a master martial artist. You know, that kind of gives me flashbacks to something.
I'm the Avatar! You gotta deal with it!
Great! You owe me a TV, mate.
And this ties back as to why I don't like this film and actually admire the first one a lot better. It's because Mulan is actually a character and showed that she could grow. She struggled in order to prove that she's just as capable as any man, and even though she fails, she's shown to overcome her shortcomings, and only goes on to succeed. Mulan 2020 really doesn't have that. She's born with these powers and doesn't really have to overcome any actual trials. The only thing that can be considered a flaw of hers is that she's holding back.
Cultivate your gift.
Sir.
Your chi is powerful, Huajun. Why do you hide it?
And her abilities don't come
Is this guy actually mad about, like, this being a Wams who's good at things? Like, it sounds like he's complaining about a lack of character growth, which in a protagonist in a film is, like, you know, a pretty fundamental thing to not put in. But yeah. But, like, the thing is, like, yeah, talking about Korra as a Mary Sue doesn't work, because the thing about Korra was supposed to be that she was supposed to be, like, the anti-Aang. Like, Korra did have a character arc. Korra's whole character arc was that she was a master of, like, all of the bending arts. Like, that came to her easily. But, like, her thing is that she struggled to learn how to become, like a leader, like a spiritual leader. And so a lot of, like, the stuff that came easily to Aang with, like, being, like, you know, meditative and, like, being, like, what's it called? Being a, like, yeah, being, like, kind of the fantasy Dalai Lama. But, like, and so, like, they just had like different lessons to learn, and I thought Korra was like a decent like she had a good arc, because she had like, while Aang had more of an external arc, she had more of an internal arc, and that was like a good way to like juxtapose the themes of the two shows against each other. But like, if like, yeah, like I don't know, it doesn't fit. But let's see if this person is being just an issue with WOMs in general.
From any training, they come from magic. And this is kind of a trend I've been noticing with female leads in some films. I'm sure you guys are already aware of this if you're capable of reading the title of this video, but I believe the new Mulan does fall in the camp of the dreaded Mare Su. Or at the very least, she has a few traits of the Mare Su.
Find the term sexist in itself, because it's Mary Sue. I don't think there's a thing called Ryan Craig.
Depending on who you ask, Mare Sus can vary from person to person, but for me, Mare Su...
Like, isn't it just like... Obviously, I've missed out on a lot of, like, things that they're talking about. Like, my memory of the Mary Sue comes from, like, what's it called? It comes from fan fiction communities from, like, a million years ago, where it was when, like... someone would write a fan fiction where they make a character that like is just good at everything and has no place to grow as a character, and so the story just sort of lacks energy because like you just introduce a person who's just good at everything. Am I wrong?
Tend to be overpowered characters who basically don't have to train in order to be good.
Well, the thing is like just because like what's it called? You can have shows with strong characters. That's fine. Like, definitely, like, having strong and capable female characters is good and important. But, like, just like with every other character, shouldn't they, like, the story should be, like, them, like, becoming that, right? Like, all fiction is supposed to be, like, how you go from, you know, like, something, like, how, like, it's about growth, right? I don't know.
Good at what they do. Basically a pseudo-realistic ideal of feminine perfection. Just flip the gender pronoun and you got yourself the same for male characters. Although Gary Stews tend to follow the rule of cool to the extreme. Now, you can disagree with me that Mulan 2020 is a Mary Sue. That's perfectly fine. I don't expect people to agree with me. But to me, I think that in comparison to the original film, that the character is a lot more shallow than the animated version. In fact, I'd even say that the movie's message runs counter to the purpose of the original film. That's the thing, it wasn't because of magical powers, it was because of her ingenuity and ability to actually think. And I don't really get that when I watch Mulan 2020. She's basically just been made into a Mary Sue. And now I have to wonder why is...
But I don't care!
Well, and I can't really speak for this because this is an article from a few years ago, there is a theory that it's pandering, of course. In 2015, there was an article that talked about why stories typical of the Mary Sue character are popular in Chinese culture.
Oh, no, I don't like where this is going.
Did you understand what I said before? Not really.
Now take this article with a grain of salt. Again, it's 5 years old, who knows how trends are, but essentially the reason why we're seeing Mary Sue-like characters, or what people can attribute the Mary Sue moniker, is an appeal to the Chinese audience. Something that corporations like to keep doing because China happens to be a very profitable...
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, because, like, there's the fact that, like, yeah, this is always brought up with female protagonists in action movies. Like, nobody's complained that, like, John McClane or whatever didn't have any character growth to get to where they are. So, like, there is that, but also Tristan's angle is that this is why I don't like John McClane either, is, like, I don't really like movies that don't have any character growth. Or if they are going to do a, because there's 3 types of stories essentially. One where the character starts in a high place and goes to a low place, or starts in a low place, goes to a high place, or goes from a high place to another high place, but is like, but is tested. And that's sort of like your typical superhero story, like a Captain America 2 or something like that is about, like, how do you stay the Captain America and not, like, you know, put yourself down. But John McClane in Die Hard did actually have an arc. All right. But, like, yeah. John Wick, yeah, the John Wick's another good example. And so, like, I don't know. It does, like... Depends upon what's more compelling, but, like... Do they have a whole... I don't know. I haven't seen this Mulan movie, so I don't know what's being talked about. Really? You don't like a movie about a guy being proven right to be angry at his wife for getting a job? What? That's a thing? I don't know. I haven't seen Die Hard because I'm not really a big fan of action movies, so... I don't really like... I get that there's people who want to see, like, wish fulfillment in their main characters in movies. I never got that idea. Like, I prefer stories where the character is imperfect and has to grow as part of the arc of the story, instead of just a person who's great in every way and then just has a bunch of things happen to them so you can be wowed by the fact that a movie happens. But, like, if this is what the Mulan movie is, then, like, go for it, I guess. Go off. But, like, I guess, like, it's not worth, like, pretending that this genre of film doesn't appeal to at least somebody.
Profitable location in the world. It's a shame that Mulan 2020 was hated by Chinese audiences due to all the controversies in the execution of the movie. The original Mulan wasn't perfect, but from a writing standpoint, it was much stronger than what we got in the 2020 film. And this is something that we've been seeing as a trend, where female characters are basically turned into Mary Sues. And it's something that, as someone who writes, enjoys good media, and frankly hates terrible writing, I worry about that. That this is the level of writing that we're accepting nowadays. It's lazy and harmful. I'm glad that people are not taking this movie seriously, that they are making it stink about it. Instead of telling people that you can work hard to achieve your goals, you now have to be a chosen one who can do this.
See, it's also, like, a more difficult thing to talk about because Mulan, like, first of all, Mulan is, like, as a character, I did a video on Mulan, like, a few years ago, back when they thought this movie was going to be coming out. And from my experience, like, my take on it was that, first of all, Mulan is, like, an important figure. She's kind of like Joan of Arc for China. And that she's supposed to, like, her ideals are about, like, what's it called? Like, some, like kind of like some, like, she's supposed to represent the ideals in, like, of, like, you know, like, putting her life on the line to help her father, and, like, the kind of duty to family and country and things like that. But I mean, like, I guess you could just do, like, Mulan's a super badass and does badass stuff, but I just, I don't know.
However, to get back on track, when you think of good characters, memorable characters, it's characters who are able to overcome their flaws, their weaknesses, and come out on top. We want to see a character grow. We want to see them changed into a better person. We want to see the journey for them to become strong. That's how you make great characters. It's what made the original Mulan so memorable. Well, that and the music, which, by the way, as you can imagine, the 2020 version doesn't have the memorable tunes to it. Which, good job, Disney! And yet, we get a natural-born warrior with magical powers, and the only flaw she has is that she's not using them to their fullest potential, by choice. And that, to me, is boring. This is kind of the same issue that people have with Rey, and no, I will not call her a Skywalker, with her essentially being nothing more than a Mary Sue. Now, whether or not you agree these characters are Mary Sues or not, you're more than welcome to disagree, but people are allowed to...
Yeah, this isn't a good thing. Why do you have a resting sad face? I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, like, the Star Wars movies weren't perfectly made because, you know, they were written by, like, several different people in a row. But, like, Rey's, like, really good at doing... Like, Rey is sort of like a... What's it called? Rey is like a whatchamacallit. She's like Korra. Like, she's good at the, like, fighting physical stuff, but her, like, what's it called? Her main arc was supposed to be, this is the problem, is that her writing was inconsistent because the movies are, except for one, are bad. Her arc was supposed to be about, like, the kind of bucking of the entire idea of the, what's it called? The story of Star Wars. Like, she was supposed to be that whole thing about, like, letting go of the past and realizing that you don't have to, like, constantly be living the shadow of, like, the hope of finding your parents or, like, you know, being attached to all of these things, and that you have to, like, forge a new path, a new generation. That was sort of, like, the thing that Rey was supposed to be. But then, like, fucking the worst Star Wars movie ever came out and just said, nope, Chuck Testa. And now it's just like, yeah, okay. Like, I feel like Rey was a poorly written character because she had one good movie arc in one movie with J.J. Abrams on the either side. And the problem is that J.J. Abrams doesn't know how to make movies. Like, it's J.J. Abrams' fault. And that's a different story. Like what's it called? Like, Luke Skywalker learning to become a Jedi was a story of him, like, learning how to fight and learning all this stuff. And, like, Rey's was about, like, oh, she's, like, good at fighting, but she has to learn how to, like, it's about, like, it was supposed to be about fighting the past, but, you know, whatever.
To believe that these characters are terrible, and so long as they're not lying outright, they have the right to basically have that opinion. Mulan 2020 is even worse when you consider that pretty much dashes on the original message. So yeah, I don't think it's a good movie, and I hope that the trends that have been appearing at Netflix as of late don't show up again. I can only be afraid of what will happen in the future. But hey, that's just one guy's opinion on the net. What are your guys' thoughts? Let me know down in the comments below. I'm on a comment and remember to examine your fandom.
Man, Rise of Skywalker was so bad. I mean, I don't hate this video as much as you guys seem to think I should, but I guess it has something to do with, like, the context of, like, does this guy have a reputation that I don't know about or whatever? I don't know. Because, like, yeah, like, there is a way to tell a dramatic story with a character that doesn't have an upward trajectory arc. That, I don't know, I haven't seen Mulan, so I can't tell if it does that correctly. About somebody who's really good, but has to be, like, tested, has to go through the ultimate test, which maybe, like, that is a way to tell a story that is different, but I don't know, yeah, it doesn't say a whole lot. And all the stuff about Rey is, like, weird. Star Wars got so wrapped up in weird bullshit that I don't understand. Because, like, the Star Wars sequels were bad. With the exception of one. Actually, like, I would argue that almost all the Star Warses are bad. They're just sort of, like, a series of special effects reels. But, like, with the exception of The Last Jedi, which is the only good Star Wars movie. But, and that story, Rey has an arc that's good, because that was a character that was picked up by a competent writer rather than Mystery Box Man. So there's that. Batman is a Gary Stewart, everyone loves him. Yeah. I mean, you could say that there is a that you could, like, there's one that has him with Batman Begins, which I guess is like a thing. I don't know who I haven't watched it. I've never had to sit through a quartering video, thank God. But Batman Begins has sort of an upward trajectory for the Batman story, and that's pretty decent. But yeah, you don't have to have an upward trajectory. But I feel like it does fit the sort of myth of Mulan of, like, this character, this, like, person who, part of this this family who, like, comes from, like, because like in the original story, if I remember correctly, she's like trained at sword fighting by her dad because of reasons I can't remember, and so she does know something. And so like if they could have, there's a way they could have told this. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, but this is hard to have a take when I haven't seen the Mulan movie, obviously. And I don't really want to pay $30 to watch on Disney Plus, so. The new film is trying to be about how society fears powerful women and tries to silence them, and Mulan trying to take her place in a hierarchy after saving the Emperor. The live-action remake is still bad, but mostly from an executive perspective. Okay. Steal it. Piracy is great. Yeah, I probably should at some point. I mean, like, the thing is, like, if it was an action, or if it was like a, you know, character-driven piece, maybe there's something to complain about. But like, if it's not, if it's just like, you know, if it's a big dumb action movie where the characters are basically superheroes who don't have to have an arc, then that's a different thing. Then you have like a Batman story. That would be great. I'm sure that would work. So that was the video. The video I watched on a couple weeks ago said that she did what she did to save her dad, and she didn't really have any interest in bucking societal trends. Well, she's not a real person, so. But yeah, there is, like, you know, a lot more of like traditional gender norms in the original story, but you couldn't make that today anyway. Anyways, this is another video called Yearling Competes with Wolf Pups for Mom's Attention. Well, this sounds fun. I'll take this. Saw now Mia's releasing a new video. Yeah, it's in 10 minutes and we're going to watch it. But first we have to watch Wolf. Action being interesting if you don't give a shit about the characters in the story. That's true, but like you can care about a character in a story and have real stakes. That doesn't involve them necessarily needing to have a upward or downward trajectory with their character. Like, for example, you can tell a great Batman story where Batman doesn't have to, like, you know, learn how to be Batman every video. So, like, you could definitely do that. That is a form of storytelling that is good, where that you just have to make sure that the stakes, the situation and the stakes are good and that they're suitably tested. Sort of like a story about sticking to your ideals rather than like becoming like something better or worse, growing or not growing. Oh man, some cute puppies. Arr. Should message me and see if she wants to come on with us. I doubt that she would, but we can find out. Let's see. Hello. Look who's here. All right. So that was some wolf babies. That was fun. And now I have a cat. Don't forget Trump has COVID. Beep, 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 beep. All right. Is it Phoebe? No, this is Romeo. All right. Let's see what we got next on this list.
Thanks to Dashlane for keeping legal
All right, we're not gonna be able to watch all of this video because we don't have that much time.
legal
But
in the air.
let's see what happens.
So you don't work on a contingency basis?
No, money down. Oops, shouldn't have this.
Do I do gaming streams on occasion? No, not really. Every time I do gaming
Yeah,
streams,
he's
nobody
just
watches.
The best worst lawyer of all time. Hey, Legal Eagles, it's time to think like a lawyer, and today we are covering one of my favorite episodes of one of my favorite series of all time. It's The Simpsons, and it's the episode where Itchy and Scratchy get taken to court for copyright infringement. It's called The Day the Violence Died. And while I will be reacting to it, I think I could probably quote this episode line for line. It's really that good. It's one of my favorites. It involves Lionel Hutz.
No, money down.
It's fantastic. So as always, be sure to comment in the form of an objection, which I will either sustain or overrule, and stick around until the end of the episode where I give The Simpsons, The Day the Violence Died, a grade for legal realism. So, without further ado, let's dig into The Simpsons, The Day the Violence
Just on your
Died.
channel earlier today. Glad to catch a live stream. That's awesome. Welcome. Okay.
So the background of this episode is that it is the 75th anniversary of Itchy and Scratchy, which is
Romeo
a
push my
clear
citation needed
stand-in
button.
for Disney, a much more violent version of the Walt Disney Corporation.
Romeo is a huge cat, and so whenever he like gets on things, he just like moves stuff around, and he's a clumsy guy.
And the town of Springfield is throwing a parade for the creators of Itchy and Scratchy, which includes Roger Myers Sr., who's the guy who claims to have invented Itchy and Scratchy. The parade goes into Bumtown, where
Did
we
Romeo
find
just jump in front of
Bart
the camera? Yes, yes, he
about
did.
to meet a bum who claims to have invented Itchy and Scratchy himself.
Hey, wait up!
Get out of Bumtown, you're no talent, bum.
Show some respect, man. That no talent created Itchy and Scratchy.
He didn't create Itchy, I
He's
did.
also suing the Trump administration at the moment.
He stole
Fun.
a character from me in 1928. When I complained, his thugs kicked me out of his office and dropped an anvil on me.
So, this is interesting. This is a
Step back history reacting to another YouTuber reacting to The Simpsons. Is that the best use of your time? Wow, Gad. Judgy much? Sure. What's it called? Yeah, Romeo's tail got in front of the microphone. Whatever. We're just having fun. We're also like killing time until 3 o'clock when the Mia Mulder video comes out.
normal copyright issue. Great issues going on already. Here you have the theft of intellectual property and purportedly the theft of a character. Now,
So yeah, Mia Mulder is too busy to
apart
come onto the
from,
stream.
Normal literary or audiovisual work can actually receive copyright protection. So, for example, we've seen many times in litigation that James Bond has copyright protection as a character apart from all of the 30 or 40 James Bond movies that that character has appeared in. So it is possible to quote-unquote steal a character from a copyright perspective. But remember, you cannot steal ideas. Ideas are not copyrightable. It's only the expression itself. And I think that's going to be a big theme throughout this episode.
You invented Itchy? The Itchy and Scratchy Itchy?
Especially because, like, what's it called? Itchy and Scratchy are a Tom and Jerry parody, which fits into the whole thing.
Sure. In fact, I invented the whole concept of cartoon violence. Before I came along, all cartoon animals did was play the ukulele. I changed all that.
Well, I'm not calling you a liar, but I can't think of a way to finish that sentence.
Here we have another
God, that
argument,
show is
which
genius.
is that he invented the idea of cartoon violence. Now that, almost certainly he would not be able to have copyright protection over. The idea of cartoon violence, or the idea of a romantic comedy, or the idea of a sci-fi space opera, these are what we call scenes of fare, which are not protectable. They are stock scenes that we see over and over and over again in many different industries and different types of IP. So he would not be able to have a claim for intellectual property over the idea of cartoon violence, even if cartoon characters were only just playing the ukulele before he came along.
Itchy the Lucky Mouse in Manhattan Madness.
That's the first Itchy cartoon ever made, and it was made by me, Chester J. Lampwick. Find me a 90-year-old projector and I'll prove it to you.
They go
Great
to
line.
school.
That's a great goof. The whole, like, what's it called? Find me a 90-year-old projector and they go to the public school.
Okay, so right off the bat, this film canister contains the film of the original Itchy and Scratchy cartoon. The thing is, that is something that lends itself to a valid copyright. The thing about copyright is that you don't have to petition the government to get it. There are reasons why you want it.
As an anarchist, aren't you illogically to copyright law? I don't know what you're trying to say. Aren't you illogically, or is this aren't you illogically opposed to copyright law? Which, like, yeah, I am. I am. Yeah, I don't think that copyright is like. Copyright is used to protect the profits of, like, multi-billion-dollar corporations more often than not. And also stymies like, there's a lot of evidence, there's a lot of stuff you can see to show that, like, copyright law has, like, stymied, in order to keep stuff profitable, has, like, stymied the production of cultural products and stopped our culture from making cool remixes and stuff because people need to make money.
But as soon as you put your expression into a tangible form that's supposed to be semi-permanent or permanent, that is when you get the copyright in the expression. And this film reel is going to be something that can lend itself to creating a copyright.
Why do you not make genocide videos anymore? I mean, my channel was never explicitly a genocide video. I have plans to make videos on plenty of dark subjects. Don't you worry. I had a plan to make an Armenian genocide episode in 2020, but for last April. But that what's it called? Then the pandemic happened, so bleh. I don't know. I make what I did I make a video about the Rohingya? Yeah, back in, like, January. I don't know. I make videos based on, like, what I think is applicable to the kind of moment we're in at any given time. So, you know.
Film itself and in the character Itchy and or Scratchy.
But I'll totally do it again because, yeah, I'll totally do it again because, like, yeah, my Rwandan genocide video is one of my most popular videos. And on top of that, I hate my videos being monetized because I feel like if my video has not been demonetized, then it's very obvious that they did something wrong. So I'll definitely do it again. Don't worry. I am the feel bad channel of a generation, so. It's good to see how much I'm going into you. Thank you, Chris.
Oh, so this is a great little tidbit here. It says copyright, that little C in the circle, 1919. In 1919, you actually had to put a copyright notice on any work that you had. If you didn't put a copyright notice on your tangible expression, then you would not get a copyright. So back in the day, it was really, really important to have that little symbol to let everyone know that this was a copyrighted work. So if Chester J. Lampwick had not put that notice on his film, he would not have a copyright and he wouldn't have any claim.
We need to go to Mia now. Oh yeah, it starts in like a minute, right? Alright, let's do this. Where are you, Mia? Mia, where are you? Here we go. Ooh, loud. How long is the Mia video? I actually don't know. I remember her telling me that she was trying to go for something a bit shorter, so I bet it's not going to be like the 50-year-long movie. Finally, moving to something more interesting. Wow, Gad. Wow. Fucking backseat driver over here. So transition and envy. Let's do this.
Oh, hello. Today we're going to talk about envy, or more specifically, jealousy. This is one of those trans videos that I make every now and then. Ever since I began my modest career as a YouTuber, I've noticed that quite a lot of people talk about wanting to look like me, which I'm flattered. I wish I could look like me too. And for the longest time, I didn't see anything wrong with this. I like to think that I look presentable, at least on here, on occasion. But a few weeks ago, I encountered a pretty nasty phenomenon. One, I received an email from a fan who was almost distraught after watching my video on passing, saying that, well, passing isn't really a goal that you should look up to, and she felt, well, what's the point? Should I even care?
Is that the makeup YouTuber
I will
who
never
fought
look
James
as
Charles?
good as you
No, I don't
do.
think Mia's
And
ever
at
fought
around the
James
same
Charles.
time, I had a sort of crisis of confidence in my own transition as well. I had the same thought, but about someone else. I will never look as good as she does. The person who wrote to me was jealous of me, and I was jealous of someone else. And I noticed that for a lot of trans people, envy is a sort of social default. And that's kind of messed up. But first, we need to step back a significant bit. Around 2010, I started reading this webcomic called Questionable Content. It's a webcomic that featured the indie music nerd Martin and his friends talking about life and romance and, well, a lot of indie music. It was a pretty standard slice of life webcomic, and just very nice and wholesome, which, you know, in times like this is something that a lot of us can need. The comic started around 2003 and has been going steady pretty much every weekday ever since, and has since become part of my daily routine.
What the hell happened?
I wake up, I make myself some tea, and I read the webcomic for the day. And most days it gives me a small hit of joy in the morning.
I think I
Now,
vaguely
obviously,
remember
this
questionable
video
content.
isn't about the comic, but if you take any way away from this video, it is that the webcomics is pretty good, and I can
I've
definitely
never
recommend it.
really gotten
It also
invested
has
in a
horny
webcomic.
robots that fuck. Around 2012, the webcomic introduced the character of Claire Augustus, a shy and slightly awkward library student, and she is a trans woman. At the time, I had seen almost no media representation about trans women that was in any way positive. Orange is the New Black was hailed as almost revolutionary for having a supporting character be trans, and that wasn't to be released for another year and a half. So, from my 19-year-old early transitioning experience, it was pretty comforting to see a trans woman just be sort of normal. Media representations of trans women often focus almost exclusively on their transness, on their transitions,
almost recognize
and how
this
that interacts with their surroundings.
Comic, but I think I never actually followed it closely.
Unfortunately, that's also what a lot of people, cis and trans, want to see from trans creators. So that is what is created. That is what this video is. The character of Claire was met with very positive reactions, which was a surprise to me because this is the internet and everything is awful all the time, and things being good here don't make that much sense to me. A reason as to why, though, might be because the transness of the character is treated as significant, but not as
Eddie
ongoing.
Redmayne had
As in, she
did
is
it
trans,
bad this week.
but that's not what she is
was
centered
very
around,
naughty.
or what defines her. The character in the comic eventually goes on to become part of the inner circle of the cast members and features
Don't defend
more and more
J.K.
in the series,
Rowling.
eventually
It's not
becoming the
good.
love interest of the main character. It's safe to say that the character is not only passing within the fiction of the comic, but doing so while being stealth. No one in her surroundings know of her trans status, except for the select few that she's told. She's not openly trans, which today might be seen as more of the standard trans norm. But in 2012, stealth was the default. The idea was that transitioning is something that eventually finishes, and that finish line is symbolized by being able to no longer have to refer to being trans again. You should be able to not only pass and be what you identify as, but you should be able to escape the trappings of having to be defined by being trans, which is what often happens when you're openly trans and people won't shut the fuck up about it. And for me in 2012, I found myself thinking on occasion, I wish I could be like that. This isn't a fault on the comic, by the way. The character is probably the best trans representation I've ever seen in any type of media. But the character's transness is very typical of the mindset that was prominent at the time, and still today in some trans circles, even if being openly trans is far more accepted today. So being a trans woman in 2012, whose trans advice came from sites with, at best, questionable content, Claire not only became wholesome, positive representation, but also a source of inspiration.
A lot of interviews where she talked to the situation
jealousy.
at the time, really depressing
Not
stuff.
for the actual character, of course. It's a webcomic and it's not real, or so my therapist tells me, but for the things that she represented. Basically, being finished with her transition. A lot of media that features trans women usually depicts us as either being finished or early in our transitioning. The depiction furthers the idea of transitioning as a very linear process from one to
married, you want to legally
other,
change your gender, your
from
partner can veto
unfinished
it.
to finished, from pre-op to post-op, and from male to female. I remember people saying in 2012 that you're only
That's
trans while you transition, and when you finish, you stop being trans. You have become the gender that you are, and that being trans is a temporary thing, which obviously makes no sense. Whatever being finished with your transition means is different for each and every person, and it's not clear if Claire thinks that she is finished with her transition or not. But for me, her version of current transness was the goal of my transness future.
Oh, you there, boy. I am the ghost of transness future.
But for me, and for many trans people, that simply wasn't possible. Or it is, but it's almost impossible to get there. For me in 2012, it was basically impossible. I was dead broke from buying my own hormones off the internet, and being 2 meters tall, it is extremely difficult for me to give anyone the initial impression of, oh, that's a cis woman, since height is a significant part of how people form an initial gendered impression. So, what do? I think that as trans people, we often find ourselves being jealous of each other. I can only speak for the experience as a single trans woman, and one that has had quite a few privileges that a lot of other trans women simply don't have. I did eventually get state-sponsored hormone treatments, and it's pretty cheap now. I managed to survive being broke by sustaining myself on student grants in university, and all in all, I've gotten pretty lucky several times in my life. But I also have a situation where I will most likely never be what I initially hoped to be when I began my transition. I've made videos before around this, and they've captured my view on it pretty well, but much of what I've talked before around this subject has been around how the subject of this video manifests itself outwardly. And again, the subject is jealousy. And while many people assume that trans women jealousy is exclusively directed at cis women, I don't think that's true. I think trans women are most often jealous of other trans women, even fictional ones. We see the successes of other trans women and obviously want those successes for ourselves as well. But because there are so many factors in play for us, this envy becomes intense. Not only do we envy success in general, but we envy success in transitioning, often specific parts of it, such as looks, hair, gendered appearance, voice, gendered mannerisms, lack of dysphoria, relationships, etc., etc., etc. And having dysphoria can often be a driver of all of these factors, as well as make each individually worse. This jealousy is also deeply personal, It's hard to draw any universal conclusions from this because all transitions are unique and because of wildly different circumstances all over the world, so whatever you latch onto will presumably also be unique. Such as, for me, Claire. At least for a while. When trans people begin transitioning, a lot of us have some sort of transitioning
Probably
goal
estrogen
in
gel?
mind.
Okay.
At least they did when I began my transition. These goals change over time, often become more realistic, and eventually settle around where we are anyway. In fact, sometimes I see people say that I am a transitioning goal, which is... So if going stealth is not in my future, which it definitely isn't, especially since I'm monetizing my transness for profit on the internet by being openly trans, what would I do? Well, even then I was openly trans. I didn't have the opportunity to disconnect from my real life to start fresh, so to say. So, if I was going to be openly trans, I would at least do so while looking good. In short, I would compensate. This is where I began my extremely modest and futile career as a model. I had managed to get a spot at an agency founded by a friend of a friend. The reason I was doing it wasn't for money. I rarely got paid anything at all, or even fame, although that was a small part of it, but I didn't really get any of that. But it was the allure of beauty and feeling important. It's really hard to convey the energy that goes
the emotion.
into a shoot. Designers, clothing,
Voyeuristic.
makeup artists, making
Voyeuristic
sure
is
that you're
when
perfect. Photographers,
is the term for
lighting,
when you're
and everything
watching
to make
somebody
sure
who
that
doesn't
you
know that
are
you're
the center of
watching them.
attention and that you look and feel perfect. Granted, you aren't actually in focus. Usually it's the clothes or the bag or whatever, but you feel like you're in focus. You feel radiant. At the times, I got people contacting me, saying that they were envious of my looks. That me showing people that you could be trans and beautiful had
probably
motivated them to
intentional.
come out as trans as well. And I was very flattered. I had a similar experience when Andrea Peggi came out as trans. And, again, I had the thought, damn, I wish I could have that. And on the shoot, I did. But the shoots are fleeting, and the view that we envy is seen as permanent, when it of course is not. But in my mind, I saw modeling as a way to secure confidence to the point where I could avoid envy, because it's a pretty nasty emotion to feel.
Oh no.
Young people
not
from all over the
Verhoeven.
community are joining up to fight insecurity. I'm doing my part. 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 They're doing their part. Are you? Join the modeling industry. Service guarantees confidence. Would you like to know more? Why don't even do that? The thing
That
is,
was
though,
wonderful.
modeling is also extremely competitive. Transness isn't a contest, but modeling definitely is. There is only a finite amount of spots on the runway, and if your friend gets the spot, that might mean you don't. And this mindset, combined with dysphoria driving envy, combines to a very bitter combination. It's possible I have this attitude because I rarely relate with other trans women. I began my transition in a healthcare system that radically changed only a few months after I had begun interacting with it. So the way my transition was handled by my doctors is more similar to an older generation of trans women, because those that interact with the system today don't have the same hoops to jump through, even though obviously there are still too many of them. The mindset that I had when I began my transition doesn't really exist anymore, and stealth is no longer
Starship
the default
Troopers
goal of
fucking
transitioning.
rules.
And that's a good thing. But just as the overall discourse around trans issues has changed dramatically over the last decade, so have my own personal goals as well. And sometimes I feel like I don't have any goals at all. Obviously my modeling career didn't really go anywhere, and because you can't look like a model 100% of the time, it doesn't really work in the long term. So you end up aimless. And what do you do with an aimless transition? I've noticed that one thing we rarely talk about in the trans community is
The fact that
bitterness.
Americans can't recognize
I
the irony
suspect
in
this is
Starship
because,
Troopers
well, it's a
is
bummer
part
to
of
talk
its
about,
selling
and no one
point.
wants
That's kind
to
of
talk
like
about things that make us
Verhoeven's
sad.
amazing power.
It's also one of those things that we don't mention because we don't want to scare away pre-transition trans people. We don't want to make it seem that being trans sucks. And it doesn't. Being trans rules. Although sometimes it doesn't. Transitioning is a process, but being able to finish that process is something that very few people can do. Again, whatever finishing means to you. A lot of trans people still see themselves as being early in their transition, or having basically finished it, having done all the work that needs to be done but not repeated. But what about trans people who are stuck in the middle? There are so many things I want to do with my own transition that still haven't happened. I began my transition over 8 years ago and I still haven't changed my legal name. For the longest time it was because I was broke. I couldn't afford it, so the paperwork was left sitting. Same with my wardrobe, something I still struggle with. My mind is wired in the sense of, I can't afford to do that.
It might be possible to make the Fountainhead with a Starship Trooper style makeover. Oh man, if they could get Verhoeven to make
thanks
the
to YouTube being a good job, something that my history
Fountainhead, it's a terrible like right-wing novel by Ayn
the
Rand.
majority of my transition,
The Fountainhead made by Verhoeven would be fucking hilarious.
I postponed most things until better days, until one day I didn't remember what the things I wanted to do even were. So instead I just live life as usual, stuck in the middle, which is what we all do, really. And that's fine, but that's not really where I wanted to be at the end of my transition. And obviously my transition isn't over, I'm not done yet, but still. And sometimes I find myself becoming bitter because of that. I see younger trans people go through a healthcare system that is far more improved over what I had to deal with, and as such can transition far easier and cheaper. And I can see older trans people transition with resources that didn't exist a decade ago. And sometimes I can see all of these people transitioning in a pace that to me seems quicker than I ever could. Even now, when I do YouTube, I'm subject to a similar mindset. But being on YouTube and seeing trans YouTubers is basically an onslaught of seeing trans people that have succeeded, because those are the narratives we want to hear. The story of trans people that don't fit into the mold of traditional transness either stand out so much that they aren't relatable, or they don't get picked up at all. So what you see is basically a slice of transness, and not really a representative selection, even though anyone can go and have a YouTube channel. So obviously
now
you become envious here
now
too.
I want the Verhoeven version
of other trans women on YouTube,
the
not because of
That'd
their
be so
success as
fucking
YouTubers, but mostly because of their transness. If they can do it, why can't I? The truth is, of course, that they can't.
Verhoeven leveling his gaze
I actually
onto
can.
the fascism inherent in
libertarianism
libertarianism would be so great.
Isn't representative of the people you actually see, just like with the models you see in magazines, or trans women that only exist in fiction. This isn't new. When I talk to older trans people, they are also envious of me with the same resources that I had. But that still leaves a lot of us with a lot of unhealthy envy. I mentioned this in my essay about suffering, and how this sort of thinking can lead this envy to become bitterness, and that bitterness to exclusion. Dealing with that envy by denying that the envy is even valid in the first place. It doesn't help that transitioning is exciting for a lot of people who are just getting into it.
I just want to go and watch a bunch of the Verhoeven
seeing
films.
Those early changes from hormone therapy and doing voice training early on, that can be very fun. But that fun often comes from novelty, and when that passes, it just becomes work. And if you haven't gone where you need to go, you might have to start over again. And speaking from experience, there are a few things more demoralizing than trying to restart your transition 8 years into it. Like, I did the voice training thing, but my voice therapist said I didn't need it, although I said that I did. When I began my hormone treatments, my fertility was assumed to be none because of Swedish forced sterilization laws, so for the longest time I assumed that I was sterile, and when I eventually found out that I actually could do fertility treatments, I had to stop my HRT for a few months in order to basically have sex with a plastic cup. Now usually that's the first step for many trans women starting hormone treatments, but it's a step that I had to restart again almost 8 years into it. And because of that, my body went through some hormone changes, my facial hair started coming back even worse than it was before, which isn't even supposed to happen. And then, all those times I blasted my face with the equivalent of a Death Star started to feel like they were for nothing.
Yeah, Verhoeven did Robocop.
I'm not alone in this situation. Obviously, transitioning is not a race, and every transition is unique. But there is a commonly understood pipeline. And if you fall out of that pipeline, then you're sort of left to figure stuff out entirely on your own, which is hard, if not impossible to do unless you have the resources to do so. And so for a lot of people transitioning, this means they have to do the same thing over and over again, seemingly forever, and going nowhere. This becomes almost insidious after a while because, as I mentioned in the beginning, people like hearing about trans stuff, and society is very interested in trans stuff, so if you do trans stuff, we become more and more defined by said trans stuff. So the longer you are submerged into the trans stuff sphere, the more it becomes who you are. And eventually a significant portion of your waking hours are consumed by the things you have to do or fail to do over and over again in order to functionally exist, like a Sisyphean torture over and over again, and it becomes pure bitterness. And then it can be hard to find the joy in being trans. I think a large part of transitioning is not being trans. It is doing the act of transitioning. And of course this can mean all sorts of things. Some people get hormone replacement therapy, some people replace their wardrobe, some people get laser, whatever. But it's all still
Hey,
work.
Romeo, this is a very well made
And
video.
yes,
I agree.
being alive in general is work. It's not glamorous, it's just doing. But transitioning is doing on top of the doing that everyone already does. And normally doing isn't so hard. But recently I've become so tired of doing. I think a lot of people feel like this. It's not a
This
rejection
is
of
Romeo.
transitioning
I have
or
another
anything.
cat, Phoebe, but
It's
she's
just the
in a cat
exhausted
bed
way
over
we
there.
deal with being stuck in a rut. We're reaching a point in our transitions when it starts to feel like drudging, relentless effort for minimal reward. And besides, how do we do anything when it feels like the sky is constantly falling on top of us? It's one thing to transition when the greatest words you have is, I wish I could look like that fictitious trans woman. It becomes harder to do anything when, on top of that, you worry about your next meal. If the world is going to fall apart into fascism, if the waters will boil, and if capitalism will lead to the final destruction of the human race. Doom scrolling seems to be the vibe for 2020. Every day it seems like something has become the worst it has ever been. And it can be pretty hard to do anything about your own transitioning in a setting like that. It can almost feel selfish, when in reality it's not, because it's impossible to care about every single thing all the time. Our minds simply aren't wired enough to do that. Add to that if you have depression or anxiety, it's no secret that I have both of those. Some days I get hit with anxiety so bad I can't read text or focus on any one thing for a few hours. Some days my depression hits me so hard it's physically hard to get out of bed at all. And if you're in a similar situation, you know that it's very hard to focus on things like transitioning with any sort of meaningful energy. Well, that's why I have a therapist. But it's impossible to sustain all of these things on your own, even with a good therapist. Which is why community is so important. Which is why it sucks even more that community is often the main driver of jealousy in the first
philosophy
place.
tube video that just came out, that's coming out too.
What I mean is, real community. I found that the people I became jealous of were rarely my peers. In modeling, the main source of my envy weren't my friends, who were in the same running as me. I was envious of high fashion models and super famous people. And early in my transition, I was jealous of basically celebrities. And in this age of social media, it's common for people to form communities around already established online communities, which is usually fine, especially in COVID. But remember, online representations of trans people aren't actually representative. So what we see as sort of the baseline default, even in smaller communities, isn't actually real. So while it sometimes sucks to hear, the best solution is just to log off, which coincidentally is also the cure for doom scrolling. It's not our fault it's like this though. Our minds like gathering in this way and feed off of negative feedback loops that we get from these spaces, and social media in general is tricking us into thinking that our harmful thinking patterns are actually normal.
in this way.
I found that unfollowing is very useful. To get rid of a lot of anxiety and envy around my own appearance, I've unfollowed basically every single modeling agency and fashion model from Instagram, which did wonders for my confidence.
Can you
Because,
stream
I mean,
some
come on, no one
Warzone?
actually looks like that. I
don't
also
even-
think that a lot
what's
of fictional
Warzone?
trans
Is this a
narratives need to
game?
deal
Is
with the
it-
fact that trans
or
people
just like war zones in
oftentimes
general?
still doing, or in the phase of finding their feet, or sometimes you have to.
Oh, it's a Call of Duty game. No,
start over.
I have never played a Call of Duty
Because
game, and
that's
I
fine.
have zero desire to ever do
But
so.
if you look at a lot of trans media, that's something we almost never see. I also think we should allow ourselves on occasion
play
to
Call of
accept that
Duty and
sometimes we
drink some
can't
Monster
do
Energy drink and listen to
Obviously, we should all
Joe
do our
Rogan
best.
and
But it's sometimes okay to
say
let go
bigoted
of
slurs or something. It's like, oh, not my
it's
not my
okay
style.
to change your goals of transitioning. Maybe I'll never be like Claire.
I'm sure there are people who love
But
Call of
that's
Duty
fine.
who aren't those kinds of people, but it's just never
I'm
been a
still
thing that
me.
really appealed to me. I don't really like, yeah.
So, where do we go from here? Well, if you're online,
Who wants Call of Duty
like
when you
I
can
am,
Mia Mulder? Yeah,
stop
I agree.
doing that. Obviously, the entire world is having a bit of a very intense moment right now. And if you're politically inclined like I am, it can feel like everything is happening all the time and far too much. Transitioning is already hard enough as it is, and we should be kinder to ourselves for maybe not being able to do it perfectly, especially considering the current circumstances. If you can, avoid doom scrolling. I know it's hard, it hits the brain so good, but it ruins the brain. Also, you should find the joy in transitioning. Even
How is
if
COD
the
full of
things
right-wing
that
propaganda?
seem very difficult to you
Whoa, we
might
got a
seem
raid
very
by
easy
Kevin Logan. Thank you.
for everyone else. Oftentimes because that perception isn't real. Dysphoria lies. Depression and anxiety lies. Social media lies. Public figures, well, we aren't really what we seem to be a lot of the time. And so be unapologetically kind to yourself and others. And of course, don't spend 10 hours a day looking at Twitter. Mia, one thing that I found helps is to step back, to completely disconnect yourself from whatever it is that is causing you distress. Be that transitioning anxiety or just anxiety in general. Do like I do and read questionable content every morning for a nice little hit of joy. Or learn a new skill. Hell, just make your own webcomic if you want to. Which brings me to the sponsor of this video, Skillshare. Skillshare offers a bunch of classes on all sorts of topics to distract you from the oncoming decline
Yeah, I
of
just said-
human civilization and
Romeo.
personal failings. I suggest the
I just
classes
sent
of
me a
iPad
thing
illustration
saying
and
that's
mastery
2 times saying step back and no
which
royalties
have
paid to me.
nothing to do with the subject of this video. But that is exactly the point that I'm making in this video. An annual subscription is less than $10.
I'll be honest,
a
I'm
month.
just not even a really
But
big
the first
fan of
1,000 people
first-person
who use the link in my
shooters.
description will get a free
At least
trial
online
of
ones.
Skillshare
I don't
Premium
really see. I
membership
don't have much of a
for
desire to
limited
play
time.
those.
Thank you
Romeo,
for
we
watching
gotta
the video.
we gotta get
If
you
you
off
like
my
the video, please
citation
consider
button.
liking and subscribing to my channel. If you want to see more of these videos and would like to support it financially, you can go to patreon.com/miamulder and help me do stuff in exchange for more streams and extra content and stuff like that.
Black Ops
I'd like
Cold
to
War
thank
will
Jeff
be.
for being so kind to answer my email.
Black Ops Cold War sounds fucking hilarious because it's like that's the one that's got the digital version of Ronald Reagan, and it's going to be about like committing war crimes for one of the most horrible presidents in American history, but it's but saying that it's good actually. Yeah. What's it called? That's not. I'm fucking Cold War. I don't know, I just have like zero desire to play any first-person shooter, really. The only one that I've like taken any particular like potential interest in was Doom, but you don't play that online. And from what what's it called? I don't know that much. That was a very good video by Mia Mulder. I definitely have to say that. God damn it, Mia, fucking raising the bar yet again. This time we're leaning into the fact these games are military propaganda. Yeah. I know Battlefield is like a different franchise and is like one of the most turbo racist things I've ever seen in my life. But I don't know, in Call of Duty, the game where like that you had to like do like commit an act of terrorism as part of the plot of the game. I don't know. Anyways, I'm not going to get distracted by Call of Duty talk and just say, hey, Mia Mulder is very good at making YouTube videos, as you just saw, so you should subscribe to Mia Mulder on YouTube. How the fuck is Battlefield a racist? There's one example. Okay, there's like a bunch of examples, but the biggest one that I remember coming to mind was that like it sort of amalgamates a very complex region down to basically simple stereotypes. One example being there was a sign in one of the games that's supposed to take place in Pakistan, and in Pakistan all the signs were in fucking Arabic, a language that is not spoken in Pakistan. Yeah. And, you know, just like the constant legitimization of the military-industrial complex and not really showing that, like, America is a constant exporter of, what's it called? Of war crimes and interventionism in other countries, and it has no questions about that. And it's like, okay. How is Arabic not spoken there? It's their religious language. Yeah, I mean, classical Arabic is spoken if you're, like, you know, dealing with, like, what's it called, religious stuff. But, like, random street signs, they're written in frickin', what's it called, Urdu. Which is closer, linguistically, to Hindi than it is to Arabic. Doesn't the U.S. Army have an esports team? Yes. And it's fucking hilarious because every time they, they stream on Twitch. And every time they're streaming, people are just like, hey, what about, all of your, how many children did you kill today and stuff like that? And it's like, fuck the military. Is that racist or just an oversight? I feel like your second point about imperialism is stronger. Yeah, I mean, like, that the Battlefield series is the one that has, like, you legitimizing the use of Predator drones and, like, all that stuff. Anyways, let's watch Legal Eagle.
The itchy and scratchy fortune. The United States did away with that requirement in 1976 in the 1976 Copyright Act, which it really wasn't necessary at all, and it was a trap for the end.
Did they just try to roll with it on those streams? I don't think they answer, but people have written articles about them like feeling they've been their fifis have been hurt by the fact that people point out like, hey, what about what's it called? How many children did you murder? Because I feel like nobody in the military should go unbullied constantly for the fact that they participate in a death machine. And we should probably not be making video games that glorify America's imperialist exportation or use of brutal violence and murder in order to expand their capitalist interests across the globe.
Wary to not include a copyright notice in your actual expression. So now you still get a copyright regardless of...
But like, I don't particularly give a shit about these games. I just don't find first-person shooters fun, really.
Whether you put the little C with the date that says that there's a copyright on your particular...
And thank you, Hellcat, for following.
Right. You did invent him. When people see this, you'll be rich and famous. Go.
Yeah, as an evidentiary issue, that makes it much, much harder to prove your case.
Well, that brought back a lot of memories.
I can't believe it's a law firm. Okay, there are actual regulations that prescribe what lawyers are allowed to put in terms of the name of their firms, and that name absolutely does not comply with that. And it sort of implies that it's not actually a law firm, although query whether Lionel Hutz is actually an attorney in...
What about first-person adventure games? I can't even think of any of those right now. Like, the games I typically play are like RPGs and like strategy games and like card games and stuff like that. Like, right now the games I'm playing the most are like Crusader Kings 3 and Hearthstone.
Is his run-ins with the bar. Lionel Hutz is my favorite character ever. He's so good.
All right, gentlemen, I'll take your case, but I'm going to have to ask for a $1,000 retainer.
Kaiserreich. I've never played Kaiserreich.
But your ad says no money down.
Oh, they
It's
got
one of the
this
greatest
all
lines in
screwed
Simpsons
up.
history here.
As I've covered already on this channel, this is one of my favorite lawyer jokes of all time, and it so plays into Lionel Hutz as being the most ridiculous, terrible lawyer of all time. This is such a clear violation of legal ethics where you can't put out an ad like that to the public and then completely redline it right in front of your potential client and claim that you only work with a retainer and money down. But the way that it works is just so perfect, so good.
So you don't work on a contingency basis?
No, money down. Oops, shouldn't have this bar association logo here either.
Yeah, he's just the best, worst lawyer of all time.
I thought I recognized
Hey, look, it's
you.
Phoebe now.
I
Hey,
gave
Phoebe.
you a plate of corn muffins back in 1947 to paint my chicken coop, and you never did it.
Those corn muffins were lousy.
Paint my chicken coop.
Make me.
Yeah, that would be a totally enforceable contract. Corn muffins for painting the chicken coop. And Chester J. Lampwick would be in violation of that contract for not actually providing
The Simpsons
his labor.
is referring
I think the statute
to
of
the
limitations
mixed
is probably run
you were
there
part of
now
the.
that it's,
Is Disney having a
80 years
corporate
in the
for
future.
York's labor?
But,
aka
it
Mikey
would have been
Perkins.
an
Wow.
enforceable-
Yeah, I think I did hear about that. a while back.
Wait. There's an easy way to get rid of Chester without the guilt of sending him back to the gutter. And all it will cost you is $1,000.
Got legal fees from some family. Okay, quick note. It is possible to bankroll someone else's lawsuit. Now, traditionally, historically, that has been illegal. That's been what's called champerty, and that's to bankroll someone else's lawsuit. This actually happened very recently when Peter Thiel, the tech billionaire, financed Hulk Hogan.
If you step back and look at the debates from a posture and policy standpoint, Trump dominated the debate, which is why MSM is running cover for Biden by saying it's a shit show. Are you fucking kidding me? That's like the dumbest fucking take I've ever heard in history. The guy went fucking bananas. He interrupted him like 150 times in 90 minutes. And like went on like a fucking like blood and soil death cult thing. And when asked to like actually like denounce white supremacy, the easiest fucking thing in the world to try and denounce, he refused. And then he started giving commands to a neo-Nazi group live on television. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Do you know how do we live in a different universe?
Lawsuit against Gawker, the web.
I mean, like, Joe Biden looked like a daughterly old man who was falling asleep, but Jesus Christ. Like, what's it called? Trump looked like he was having a fucking psychotic episode.
Website for publishing Hulk Hogan's sex tape. This is a part of a great book by Ryan Holiday called Conspiracy that talks about Peter Thiel wanting to get revenge against Gawker. So he bankrolled this lawsuit that eventually bankrupted the Gawker media enterprise. So it is possible to do. It is legal. Might not be the nicest thing to do, but you are allowed to do it.
Like, the person that he got called out on during the stream that was getting yelled at was like fucking Chris Wallace from fucking Fox News. If you're too fash for fucking Fox News, you're going to some like rough situations. He has denounced supremacy in all forms many times over 4 years now. He literally gave commands to the Proud Boys. You fucking fascist. Oh my god, get out of my chat. Okay.
Exhibit A. Steamboat Itchy, dated 1928. The very first Itchy and Scratchy cartoon. And the credits clearly state, written, directed, and created by Roger Myers. Music by Roger Myers and George Gershwin. Produced by Roger Myers and Joseph P. Kennedy. Copyright 1928 by Roger Myers.
So we've already talked about how important that copyright notice was. I don't know why they are jumping right to
anarcho-tyranny. What a fucking joke.
Years of discovery and motions on paper. This is the sort of thing that would be dealt with on summary judgment because there's no evidence on behalf of Chester J. Lampwick. But as with most fictional portrayals of legal proceedings, they're just skipping right to the juicy parts.
You will also notice Mr. Meyer's name and copyright notice on the original drawings of the other members of the Itchy and Scratchy family. Brown-nosed bear, disgruntled goat, flatulent fox, rich Uncle Skeleton, and dinner dog.
My client's film predates all of those things, Your Honor.
You can't argue in the middle of a statement.
Oh, yes! I've forgotten! Your famous film! The one you destroyed before the trial and haven't been able to find another copy of! Oh, yes, that film!
Yes. You don't have a copy, do you?
Now, that sounds ridiculous, and it is ridiculous in the middle of trial like that. But in real life, Lionel Hutz would have been able to ask if the owners of Itchy and Scratchy have old copies of the 1919 film that is the basis for...
Oh yeah, sorry, Gavin McGinnis has not admitted to being a Nazi. He just has a bunch of people who have right-wing death squad fucking tattoos on them and have been explicitly committing violence against people of color, and on top of that, declare themselves to be Western chauvinists, which is like basically like taking white supremacist and writing it in the like going to the thesaurus and be like, what can, if I can go to the thesaurus and find a synonym for white supremacist, what could it be? Let's go with Western chauvinist. Ha! They won't see through that.
Claim. And if they did, they would be obligated to turn that over. Now, you might think that's crazy, that why would you turn over negative evidence against yourself? Well, the rules of civil discovery require you to turn it over because we don't want trial by ambush. We want everyone to put all of their cards on the table. And if there's evidence that you have that's bad for your case, you have a duty to turn that over to the other side if you get to that part of the discovery process. So Lionel Hutz, he's a terrorist.
Gosh, we've got like somebody trying to like do like a Trump, like trying to defend Trump's like absolutely fucking unhinged performance of the debate in the Twitch chat. Then the YouTube chat, we've got someone trying to like defend the honor of the Proud Boys. Like, holy shit. Man, Friday streams get like some real like, luckily the Holocaust denier guy hasn't shown up yet, or else this would be like, a full thing.
Terrible lawyer, but even a blind squirrel finds a nut sometimes. So good job for him.
Roger Myers didn't create any of his characters. He stole them all.
Stole them all? Why, that could change the whole picture.
The only characters Myers could ever come up with were pathetic stick figures with the words sarcastic horse and manic...
So you get banned for having different opinions. I don't understand these rules. Typically, you get banned for supporting fascism. And yeah, fascism and any ideology that is racist or, racist or tries to deny the civil and human rights of others have no fucking place in my chat room. I have had lots of people who disagree with me in the past in this chat, and they're fine. Like, what's it called? You don't be like an anarcho-communist who posts on the internet for 5 years without having people coming into your content and disagreeing with you. But I draw the line at people who try to suppress the, the civil and human rights of others. I got banned for talking about COD. I don't know what the fuck that was about. I guess.
Mailman printed on them, and they stank.
So, who is the voice of Chester J. Lampwick? That sounds really... Hold on a second. I need to look this up, because that guy sounds really familiar. It's Kirk Douglas. Oh, I didn't know that. That's fantastic.
Mr. Hutz, we've been in here for 4 hours. Do you have any evidence at all?
Well, Your Honor, we've got plenty of hearsay and conjecture. Those are kinds of evidence.
That's actually true. Hearsay and conjecture.
So this is like a joke that I love because whenever I talk about like the YouTuber, there's like a whole genre of like YouTube advice channels that give you like a very, very surface level. Like these are like they're supposed to be like, this is the channel that's going to help you like grow your YouTube channel. But then like they are just like, have you thought about click through and watch time? Those are the kinds of things you should be getting better in order to make your channel grow. And then it's like, well, how do you do that? You're like, well,
There are kinds of evidence. They're not good forms of evidence, but technically they are types of evidence. Many of the lawyers that I know use that line all the time. It's a staple among lawyers. It's fantastic.
Big Joel did a video on a different type of YouTuber. I'm talking about a different group.
It was in the movie Mr. Lampwick showed me. Ladies and gentlemen.
And the reason that these YouTube channels do that is because they're all trying to sell like consulting services that are very expensive to exploit the fact that people get very frustrated that their YouTube channels aren't growing. So they like, you know, take $900 courses in order to grow your YouTube channel.
Drawing was made in 1919, 9 years before Roger Myers made his first Itchy and Scratchy cartoon.
Yeah, but how do we know that that's authentic? There's a whole authentication process that you have to go through to prove that the evidence that you are putting forward is what it purports to be. I don't think this evidence would be admissible at this point.
Okay, maybe
Yeah,
my
it's
dad
too bad
did
that
steal Itchy.
Phil
but
Hartman
so what?
died.
Animation
It's one of the
is
biggest
built
losses to
on
The Simpsons.
plagiarism. If it weren't for someone plagiarizing the Honeymooners, we wouldn't have the Flintstones. If someone hadn't ripped off Sergeant Bilko, there'd be no Top Cat. Huckleberry Hound, Chief Wiggum, Yogi Bear, Andy Griffith.
One of the all-time great sight gags of The Simpsons is to break the fourth wall and say that the idea of Chief Wiggum is stolen from somewhere else. Just A+. And there's some truth to what he's saying, that these characters are often homages and, frankly, stolen from other places. So whether you get copyright protection over a specific character itself is up for grabs, and not all taking is illegal. Not all copying is illegal.
Well, Itchy and Scratchy are gone, but here's a cartoon that tries to make learning fun. Sorry about this, kids.
Oh, I know what this is. This is one of the most brilliantly written parodies of all time. I can sing this entire song.
Hey!
Oh yeah, this is amazing.
On the steps of Congress.
I'm not garbage. I'm an amendment to be.
Yes, an amendment to be. And I'm hoping that they'll ratify me.
There's a lot of flag burners who have got too much freedom.
It's true. Cartoons do make you violent.
Violation.
Make it legal for policemen to beat them 'cause there's never
Yeah, another Vietnam assault about or whatever. It's such a good. Goddamn. You Zoomers don't understand just how great The Simpsons is. It's like Boomers with the Beatles.
Dad, can we
We're gonna be like that for The
$182,000?
Simpsons, millennials.
What for?
Lisa and I want to finance a series of animated cartoons.
Oh, forget it.
Animation legal precedent, copyright law 1918 and 1923. That is such a great little detail there, because there actually was an amendment to the Copyright Act in 1923 that changed copyright law. And in fact, because of the change in copyright law, all works before 1923 are out of copyright. So ironically, although the litigation over this case of a copyright from 1919 is raging in this episode, now, looking back, all of this would be out of copyright.
I legit learned that what a connotational amendment is from that.
Would be null and void, and all of that stuff would have entered into the public domain. So it's a great little detail that they are looking at the correct copyright law for the time. And since the work was created in 1919, you'd have to look at the law that existed before the Copyright Act of 1923, because that's how you sort of retroactively apply the law. Just from top to bottom, one of the best Simpsons episodes of all time.
When no one could think of a plan to resurrect Itchy and Scratchy, a young boy, a wonderful, irrepressible young boy, took it on his own to solve the problem. He discovered that the Postal Service's Mr. Zip was just a ripoff of my father's stick figure character, Manic Mailman. So the government gave me a huge cash settlement
So that sounds totally ridiculous, and there are still the questions of whether you could even have a copyright in a not really thought out character like that. But a situation almost exactly like that actually did happen in a famous case involving the US Postal Service. The US Postal Service created a stamp where they took a photo of the Korean War Memorial in Washington, D.C., which is a series of statues with soldiers who were wading through the snow. And they put it on a stamp. The thing is, the artist who created the statues still had a copyright in the statues. You can have a copyright in statues, just like you can have a copyright in paintings or a novel. So when they created this stamp without his permission, they committed copyright infringement in the same way that the US Postal Service supposedly created copyright infringement in this particular case. So
someone
things
share
like
one of
that
my videos on
actually do
Telegram
happen,
again.
and you can
I don't
sometimes
know.
get a big cash settlement from the government when they involve copyright infringement.
And Itchy and Scratchy Studios is back in business. Thanks to you, Lester.
What the hell is
Yeah, it's
going
such a good
on?
joke.
And they
My
end
sister
the episode
Eliza.
poking fun at the fact that their own characters are derivative. Just so good. But now it's time to give this episode of The Simpsons a grade for legal realism. So on the one hand, you have a brilliant story involving some really detailed aspects of copyright law that you really don't see all that often. And for the most part, it gets the copyright stuff exactly
Neither one of
right,
the oldest
right
millennials or
down
youngest
to
Gen
the
Xer, depending
dates
upon where the cutoff
involved,
is.
where the copyright law changed. You have probably one of
Most
the
people
best
say to me
depictions
1983.
of a Schoolhouse Rock parody that is not only, I think, hilarious,
But
exactly right on First Amendment law. But on the other hand, you have a trial that is abbreviated to be the shortest trial known to man without any of the boring parts, and the worst lawyer known to man in the form of Lionel Hutz. But in some sense, the writers must know what they're doing, because there's no way to write a lawyer that bad without knowing what a lawyer should do. So
The
all
founder
in all, I will...
who left and condemned it. Oh, you're talking about Gavin McInnes, the guy who, during a live stream of the debate earlier this week, actively shouted, basically saying that he was the commander of the Proud Boys. You're talking about that leader.
Will give this episode of The Simpsons an A-. Maybe I'm giving them a high grade just because I love this episode so much. But it's my show, and I can do whatever I want.
There's something unsettling about that.
The ideas for Itchy and Scratchy may have been stolen, but your passwords and payment information should never be. And Dashlane gives you an all-in-one tool to protect yourself online. Dashlane syncs all of your passwords and payment details between all of your devices without ever knowing those passwords. When you sign up for it again, Dashlane laptops and phones and intermediate. With Dashlane, you're getting the doobly real lawyer reactions over here, where I'll see you in court.
Alrighty. Well, that was fun. That was fun. Okay, let's watch another thing. I'd never seen a legal video before, so that was fun.
Most history books will tell you the Roman Empire fell
Oh yeah,
in
so
the
this is Ted Ed again, and this is the rise and fall of the Byzantine Empire.
5th century CE. But this would have come as a great surprise to the millions of people who lived in
I've seen this one before. This is about the Greek Eastern Roman Empire.
Roman Empire up through the Middle Ages. This medieval Roman Empire, which we usually refer to today as the Byzantine Empire, began in 330 CE. That's when Constantine, the first Christian emperor, moved the capital of the Roman Empire to a new city called Constantinople, which he founded on the site of the ancient Greek city, Byzantium. When the Visigoths sacked Rome in 410 and the empire's western provinces were conquered by barbarians,
Seems well made, it's not really
Constantine's
my thing,
eastern capital remained the seat of the Roman emperors. There, generations of emperors ruled for the next 11 centuries. Sharing continuity with the classical Roman Empire gave the Byzantine Empire a...
It's so crazy how late in the game the Byzantine Empire existed. It was the 1490 something, right? Or 14, no, it was 1444, no, 1483. Sometime in the late 15th century anyway, was when the Byzantine Empire was eventually overthrown by the Ottomans. But something, 1453? Okay. Yeah, so It's just it was funny that the Roman Empire was didn't even have Rome in it by that point.
A technological and artistic advantage over its neighbors, whom Byzantines considered barbarians. In the 9th century, visitors from beyond the frontier were astonished at the graceful stone arches and domes of the imperial palace in Constantinople. A pair of golden lions flanked the imperial throne. A hidden organ would make the lions roar as guests fell on their knees. Golden birds sung from a nearby golden tree. Medieval Roman engineers even used hydraulic engines to raise the imperial throne high into
the falling of the what's it called? I made a video about that. It's one of the oldest Step Back videos, but the fall of Constantinople basically and the rise of the Ottoman Empire as it started to like conquer and dominate the Middle East was basically like it basically made trade through the Silk Road. If you wanted to get stuff through the Silk Road, you had to go through the Ottomans, and that meant like that they could charge taxes and do all sorts of stuff, whatever they wanted. So that is what kind of caused Europeans to be like, all right, we're gonna have to find another way to get. We're gonna have to find another Silk Road, and that's what led to the sort of age of exploration and stuff like Columbus and I'm trying to remember who the Portuguese sailor was who sailed around the Horn of Africa and discovered landed in India and stuff too.
The air. Other inherited aspects of ancient Roman culture could be seen in emperors' clothing, from traditional military garb to togas, and in the courts, which continued to use Roman law. Working-class Byzantines would have also had similar lives to their ancient Roman counterparts. Many farmed or plied a specific trade, such as ceramics, leatherworking, fishing, weaving, or manufacturing silk.
And so, to many people, the fall of the collapse of the church, or the collapse of Constantinople, because also what happened is that when the Ottomans sacked Constantinople, a lot of the Greek artists and philosophers and stuff like that, who would typically, if they were leaving the Byzantine Empire, would go to like the Middle East, like Baghdad and stuff like that. But because like the Islamic Golden Age was pretty much past its peak, they started going to Europe and started bringing this like all this stuff they'd been developing stuff that they had like developed and they had taken from the Middle East and Arabic cultures, and eventually basically started the Vasco da Gama. Yeah, that's the name. That's the guy who went around Africa. And so anyways, this thing, the collapse of, to many ways, if you could tie like the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of the early modern period, or the Renaissance, if you want to use the kind of the old term for it, you could say that you could tie it to the collapse of the end of the Byzantine Empire and the Ottoman control of Istanbul.
But of course, the
I noticed a lot because the Ottoman Empire I find really interesting, and I going to Istanbul is one of my high priority vacation destinations. It's one of the places I want to go the most.
Byzantine Empire didn't just rest on the laurels of ancient Rome. Their artists innovated, creating vast mosaics and ornate marble carvings. Their architects constructed numerous churches, one of which, called Hagia Sophia, had a dome so high it was said to be hanging on a chain from heaven. The empire was also home to great intellectuals, such as Anna Komnene. As imperial princess in the 12th century, Anna dedicated her life to philosophy and history. Her account of her father's reign is historians' foremost source for Byzantine political history at the time of the First Crusade. Another scholar, Leo the mathematician, invented a system of beacons that ran the width of the empire, what's now Greece and Turkey. Stretching more than 700 kilometers, this system allowed the edge of the empire to warn the emperor of invading armies within 1 hour of sighting them at the border. But their advances...
so that's where J.R.R. Tolkien got the idea from.
...couldn't protect the empire forever. In 1203, an army of French and Venetian crusaders made a deal with a man named Alexios Angelos. Alexios was the son of a deposed emperor and promised the crusaders,
"You respect me greatly for using the ISO standards for date." Oh, BCE and CE? Thank you. I have gotten shit over the years for doing that, but less so. recently. But yeah, I wouldn't use anything but BCE and CE.
Vast riches and support to help him retake the throne from his uncle. Alexios succeeded, but after a year the population rebelled, and Alexios himself was deposed and killed. So Alexios's unpaid army turned their aggression on Constantinople. They lit
the
massive
Fourth Crusade,
fires which destroyed countless works of ancient and
just also
medieval
the destruction
art
of
and literature,
Constantinople,
leaving about 1/3 of the population homeless. The city
You're
was
talking about
reclaimed 50
month,
years
and
later
day.
by the
Oh
Roman
yeah, I
Emperor
definitely do that.
Michael Palaeologus, but his restored empire never regained all the territory the Crusaders had
I
conquered.
use that for everything.
Finally, in 1453, Ottoman Emperor Mehmed the Conqueror captured Constantinople, bringing a conclusive end to the Roman Empire. Despite the Ottoman conquest, many Greek-speaking inhabitants of the Eastern Mediterranean continued to call themselves Romans until the early 21st century. In fact, it wasn't until the Renaissance that the term Byzantine Empire was first used. For Western Europeans, the Renaissance was about reconnecting with the wisdom of antiquity. And since the existence of a medieval Roman Empire suggested there were Europeans who'd never lost touch with antiquity, Western Europeans wanted to draw clear lines between the ages. To better distinguish the classical Latin-speaking pagan Roman Empire from the medieval Greek-speaking Christian Roman Empire, scholars renamed the latter group Byzantines, and thus, 100 years after it had fallen, the
Thank you,
Byzantine
Wizard of Waldorf, for
Empire
following.
was born. Want to learn more about the Byzantine Church mentioned in this video? Check out this lesson.
Fucking cool shit. I want to go to Constantinople so bad. It's like really high on my list of things I want to see someday. Alrighty, let's see what we got next.
Season finale of Deadliest One.
The IRA versus the Taliban. Oh boy. Okay. From Fern X2, but this is just obviously a clip from television, so I do want to, yeah, Istanbul. I definitely want to go. Is Istanbul not Constantinople, etc.
Warriors saw an extraordinary battle. Take a look at this. It is amazing.
The Taliban, hardline religious extremists who back their beliefs with bullets. The Irish Republican Army.
Oh
no. Who waged a bloody...
So this is a joke about those, like, greatest warrior shows?
Savage war for Irish independence. Who is deadliest?
Wait, was this a real thing they did? And that wasn't a parody? That's a real thing they did?
Yep. You are not dreaming. That was the Taliban versus
Fucking
the IRA.
Deadliest Warrior
you may
was so
laugh,
bad.
But that's actually how the news is just presented to you.
Just out of interest, who won between the Taliban?
Well, that, Mr. Rufus Hound, is a question that I'm going to ask you.
So, having mocked the poor taste of finding out that, we are now going to venture into that world ourselves.
That's where we're going. So you know, okay, the IRA are fighting with slingshots, flamethrowers...
Slingshots?
Slingshots.
Which IRA is this?
It's the IRA.
Dennis the Menace.
Look, they take the weapons from throughout history. The IRA have got slingshots, flamethrowers, armor-light guns...
That's the end of the battle, isn't it?
And
Whoa,
nail
why does that guy have a
bombs.
Hitler
The
stash?
Taliban fought with bayonets, rocket launchers, assault rifles, and mines.
Well.
They bent the rules slightly for this one. It's 5-man squads.
Oh.
5-man squads versus each other.
This is terrorist five-a-side.
That's exactly what it is. I want you to place your bets, though. Rufus, IRA versus Taliban.
I'm going to keep it British.
I know that Deadliest Warrior existed. I just didn't know that it was that was a real episode that they would do. That they would go that dumb. Hey, thank you, Batsu0. Thank you for following.
Go with the IRA.
Jamelia?
I'm definitely going to go with the Taliban.
Is this both Islamophobic and anti-Irish somehow? I wouldn't be surprised. It's a British TV show, and as we know, English people are really great at both of those.
Because they seem to have much worse weapons. A slingshot, come on.
Richard, so basically what I'm saying is, which is better, Catholicism or Islam?
Where is it fought? Is it fought in Ireland? Or
well, genuinely, for no reason at all, it's fought in a car park. It's fought in an American car park, as you will see.
I am going to go. I believe the truth is that the Taliban would win this fight as they are ferocious warriors.
Have I been disconnected?
Okay, so Rufus, you're saying the...
According to this, the stream's going. I don't see any... Okay. Okay. Fun. They took down my stream for copyright stuff. That's fun. Okay. So I guess I'm not streaming on YouTube right now. Oh. I think I'm back. We're back. Okay. I was... apparently, somebody really doesn't like me playing this clip because the bots blocked my stream until I stopped playing the TV show. So there we go. Ha ha ha. Wow, that's my life. Hey, Siraxta, thank you for following. Welcome to the Orc Gang. So I guess we're going to have to finish this clip because if I don't, they take down my stream, I guess. Fucking hell. Sorry. Alright, let's see what's going on in the Young Turks. Boo-doo.
Norwegian bomber Andres Breivik is complaining.
Holy shit, this is from 2014. This is the Young Turks. This is demands better video games in prison. Okay, this is posted by 255AD. I have no idea what the point is, but okay.
About the conditions that he's experiencing in his prison in Norway. Now, if you know anything about the prison system in Norway, they're actually extremely liberal. Other than getting rid of some of the liberties that these prisoners get, they basically live a normal everyday life with certain perks like televisions in their sets and exercise time and long walks they get to take. But Breivik is not happy with it. He feels like he's living in a state of torture. In fact, he says that he is going to enter a hunger strike if things don't change. He says the hunger strike won't end until the Minister of Justice, Undinson, and the head of the KDI, the Norwegian Correctional Service, stop treating me worse than an animal. So he does specify what his demands are, so let me list that for you guys right now.
Yeah, so it makes me think that Cenk Uygur is going to say something real fucking dumb about prison systems.
Now, he says that he wants better conditions for his walks. He has daily walks. He also wants to upgrade his PS2 or PlayStation 2 to a PlayStation 3.
Well, what's interesting about this is that indicates that that animals get PlayStation 2.
I didn't know that animals got to play with consoles like that. Also, he wants access to his choice of adult games. He's not really happy with the selection or the variety of games he has now, and he wants a wider selection of activities and double the weekly allowance. Currently, he's getting about $50 a week. What? I know. It's incredible.
Okay, so first of all, they probably don't let him play with quote-unquote adult games because they're shooting games. And
he murdered a bunch of people.
He shot and killed 77 people, okay?
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, actually the first 8 were in a bombing, and then the other 69 who were kids at a camp were shot. So, gee, I wonder why they don't let you play shooting games or adult games.
And I should also note that he's serving the maximum sentence in the country, which is 21 years. Now, after his 21-year sentence is over, he will be up for evaluation. And if they determine that he needs more time behind bars, he will get more time behind bars.
Well, I'm sure this letter is going to help his cause.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe in Norway they'll listen to half his demands. I mean, look, I love Norway and the Scandinavian countries that do many fascinating things that Americans can learn from.
Here we go. Cenk's about to say something really dumb about prisons.
We've talked about the education system in Finland endlessly. God bless them, etc. I don't know if it's the American in me, the Turk in me, whatever it is, but I am full of rage for this guy. And I mean, I would smash that PlayStation over his head after receiving this letter, and I would give him none of it. I'd take away whatever he's got. 21 years for killing 77 people, and this asshole's going to complain about what kind of PlayStation he has?
I mean, like, there's not too much to commentate on this, except that Cenk Uygur is a reactionary who wants, who thinks that the justice system is supposed to be for his personal revenge, which is an unfact.
has. I mean, look, I'm not interested in rehabilitating this guy, and I don't know if that makes me a bad guy, unliberal, whatever it is, but I got no interest in this dude. I would hope that he suffers the rest of his life as much as we can.
Yeah.
Worse than an animal. Are you kidding me? I'd make it a hell of a lot worse. And that's, I don't know, again, maybe I'm the bad guy, but...
I think you are the bad guy.
Yeah.
Because I share my feelings. Our feelings are identical about him. But once you've been tried, once you're in prison, you don't treat people worse based on the crime they committed. You can't. It's a terrible system. So once he's in there, and this guy, the reason why this guy is entitled to a couple more perks than everybody else, let's leave this guy out. The reason why anybody in solitary confinement is entitled to more perks is because they're in solitary confinement, and that is as extreme a punishment as you can get. So yeah, he gets daily walks, and if you want to give him more video games, I mean, look, they don't have to meet any of it. That's the thing. You get PlayStation 2. Whether he gets shoot 'em up games is irrelevant to me. I mean,
that's the question I have is do you think the prison administrators are actually going to listen to his demands? I mean, a hunger strike is a pretty drastic thing to do. I mean, I'd be interested to see how long he could honestly keep it up. But when we see it all the time in Gitmo, but these people are looking for basic human dignities. And so, of course, they go on these hunger strikes to try
Genesis right now.
Goddamn. Like, so this happens a lot when you're watching, like, American political commentary on, like, the prison system in Scandinavia. Is they're like, oh, it's so humane. But that doesn't get my rage boner that wants... fucking like to have a what's it called, a revenge orgasm, to what's it called, to bathe in the blood of the evil and say that we are pure and that these people deserve nothing but contempt and destruction and brutality. And it's like, fucking cool your jets, bud. Like, god damn, like. This is why, like what's it called? The Scandinavian people, they understand that, what's it called? Brutalizing people and, like, what's it called? Bashing, like, what's it called? Like, Cenk Uygur, obviously he was kind of doing a comedic exaggeration, but, like, don't, like, advocating for just beating prisoners and stuff like that. Like, dude. Prison is not designed for you to get your fucking fetish off of seeing people brutalized. It's a way to try and fix people who have obviously become broken because they've done horrible things. I hate it. I hate the way that Americans and Canadians, because Canada is basically the same as America in this regard, that they think about prison. Like, we have one life sentence, so you can actually get out of prison if if you commit murder, you can do like 25 years and then you get out. But like, our prisons are still brutal, horrible places that just kill people an astonishingly high amount of times. And it's horrible because prison, like the prison system, like the fucking, like, for Cenk Uygur to get his revenge boner, to finally get satisfaction so that he can finally get off on seeing the pain and suffering of people who did bad things. Like, that system has been shown to not work at all. It makes people better criminals, and it makes people, it exacerbates mental illness and turns people into broken human beings that can't function in society when they get out. Like, that's not what prison's supposed to be. If you're going to have prison, which, like, I'm not super for in the first place, like, it should be a place where you take people who have done horrible things and find out what went wrong and try to rebuild that human from their core out. I don't know. Fuck this guy. Phoebe's left in disgust, yeah.
Get well.
Exactly.
They go old school. They play
They're
in
trying to raise
television.
awareness across the world of the atrocities that are being committed against them. You've got this guy who goes on a hunger strike. It's an unfortunate position that he's putting these administrators in, because it's almost like he's forcing them to listen to him.
Yeah, and I think that this obviously, makes us compare our justice system to the justice.
Do you think there's a difference between wanting punitive justice at the same time recognizing that isn't helpful and acting against that impulse? Yeah. Like, it's very obvious. This is why the justice system, if anything, should be like should try to be disconnected and impartial and not like when people are like, you should consider the victims when you're talking about like sentencing people, and it's like, no, you shouldn't, because what's it called? Like, yeah, like if I had a child who was like murdered, I would like want to fucking choke that person out. That is why I am exactly the last person who should be consulted about what happens to that person, because that person's just hurt and wants revenge. And trust me, like, seeing justice that way is not ever going to be a recipe for fixing the problems that cause crime in the first place.
Justice system in Norway, and you know, we have a very punitive model where it's mostly about punishment. Some people like to pretend like we believe in rehabilitation, but we really don't. I mean, look at the way that we treat our prisoners right now. But in Norway, I mean, you have to kind of take the emotion out of how you react to this story, because when you look at the facts, when you look at the statistics in Norway, you realize that whatever it is that they're doing, even though it makes us feel so tremendously uncomfortable, it's working. So I looked up some statistics just to see what Norway is like compared to the United States, and obviously they're very liberal when it comes to the treatment of their prisoners. Well, Norway has...
I love how you can tell this is old because they still say the word liberal. Like, man, Bernie Sanders, you can tell how much Bernie Sanders really changed political discourse after this point.
Had 0.6 intentional homicides per 100,000 people, but in the United States it was much more. 71 out of...
It must be so weird for a person named Anna Kasparian to be part of a news network that's named after the people who committed the Armenian genocide. Just gotta put that out there.
Every 100,000 Norwegian citizens is incarcerated. In the United States, it's 743 out of every 100,000 American citizens. Let's look at the recidivism rate. That's also really important. In Norway, it's about 20%. In the United States, it's 67% of offenders are re-arrested and 52% are reincarcerated. So obviously, we're not doing this right at all.
Well, and you also have to think about the types of crimes that people are actually going to prison for in Norway. They're not nonviolent, petty drug offenses, and that's the majority of people who are filling up our prisons in America.
Yeah, I dismiss the first two of those stats. Yeah, we put a lot of people in jail. It's because we're idiots and we lock up people for drug offenses. So I don't think that makes Norway's system any better. And if you want to convince me that American system sucks, I'm right there with you, okay? We imprison far too many people. We're vicious. Our solitary confinement, we're not arguing about PlayStations. I mean, we put you in a hole and we don't let you get out of that hole for an ungodly amount of time, an inhumane amount of time, okay? So we're extreme in the opposite direction. But, you know, the only thing that convinces me a little bit is the recidivism rate. Obviously, if those things are, you know, even half true, we're not even bothering to rehabilitate people, and obviously Norway's actually doing a pretty good job of rehabilitating people. I'm open to those facts, but I can't take the emotions out of this case because I think that punishment is partly to rehabilitate and partly for vengeance. And I have no problem with that. If one of the people he blew up or one...
The fuck, Cenk? Holy shit. Okay. I'm kind of glad he got fucking destroyed when he tried to run the primary. Can you imagine somebody who would say, I want fucking vengeance? Actually, he would fit in much better with the Democratic Party if he was more like this outwardly, but I don't want to deal with him. Ugh.
One of the kids he shot was mine. I would want vengeance.
I know, but you know, yes, so would I. And we know that we wouldn't be involved in that process, and thank God, because a civilized country doesn't involve people in that process.
I understand, and I can't make the decision if I'm one of the affected people. I understand that. But as a society, this is where I might part company with you guys.
Man, now I want to make a Tristan Won't Shut Up video about fucking Cenk Uygur. Because, like, he's like one of the most visible media figures of quote-unquote progressive politics, and he's a union-busting, like, law and order fascist, genocide denier as well. So that's fun.
Guys, I don't mind that we inject a certain amount of vengeance into our justice system if we're actually arresting the right people for the right reasons, like this guy. Well, this psychopath, obviously, I mean, he killed 77 people, but the fact that he can't even understand...
See, the thing is, I met Cenk Uygur once. Very briefly. We had a brief conversation at VidCon, and like every time I meet one of these people in person, I'm always just like, oh, I can't talk shit about them. That would be really bad. But like, whatever. Fuck it.
How outrageous these requests are on being treated worse than an animal. How did you treat those 77 people? How did you treat those 69 kids, you asshole? How did you treat them? His hunger strike, this bitch isn't gonna last more than half a day. He's a drama guy.
Yeah, because he's gonna get hungry.
Yeah, he's gonna get hungry and he's gonna eat by lunch.
Right.
What genocide did he deny? The Armenian genocide.
He's so full of crap. And let me tell you one last thing. If he went on a hunger strike,
he's the closest thing to a sock damn grifter. No, that's what's his face. There's another guy who is like I think he was involved with the Donald Trump or not Donald Trump. He was involved with the Bernie Sanders campaign for a while. I think his name is like Sean something. Is it Sean King? Who's like pretty well known for basically being a grifter. I think it was Sean King.
Strike, and he actually died on that hunger strike. First of all, they shouldn't give him anything based on his stupid ass hunger strike. And if he died on that hunger strike, I would.
Wow. Okay. Bad.
More about.
Goddamn. Yeah, Cenk, not good. I should complain about Cenk in a video. Just burn all of my bridges so that I will never be relevant is the trick. Okay, so that was fun. Oh yeah, we're not gonna watch one from this list. We're gonna watch one from this list.
Since at least 213 BC.
All right, so there's a podcast called Scam Goddess where they talk about Sean King. Yeah, there's like pretty good evidence that Sean King is a grifter. So this is the fiery history of banned books from Storied. Otherwise, it's lit. So that's what we're gonna watch next.
BC, book burnings have been a reaction to the power of the written word. When roasting paper in a giant circle went out of style, at least in the intellectual sphere, we hope, governments would take it upon themselves to ban books. However, when we talk about book bannings today, at least in the Western world, we are usually discussing a specific choice made by...
Are you sure this isn't from me? It's an animated history video. Yes, I have two lists. I have a very long list. That's all the links that you submitted. And I have a very short list, which is the links that everybody else has submitted. And I'm sort of switching off so that everybody else gets a chance to have their videos put up.
Individual schools, school districts, and libraries made in response to the moralistic outrage of some group. This, while still hotly contested, problematic, and controversial, is still nothing in comparison to the ways books have been removed, censored, and outright destroyed in the past, along with their authors. So on that happy note, let's explore how the seemingly innocuous book has survived centuries of the banhammer. Let's do it.
Wait, there are separate lists now? Listen, Matt, I had to. It was a last minute thing I had to do today when I realized that that almost 70% of all the video links that were submitted to the Reactor were from one person. And I was like, oh, if I do that, then everybody else is never going to see their videos. So I had to split it into two things and, do one of one and then one of the other.
Historically speaking, there are usually three big reasons books are banned: religion, morality, and politics. The three things you do not discuss in dinner. Back in the BCE era, entire ideas, religions, and political movements were and could be wiped out, not with a mass tweet, but with book burnings, and sometimes, if things were really intense, people burnings as well. It was really real. One of the earliest documented examples in North America is the burning of Aztec and Mayan manuscripts in the 1560s.
Oh my God. This is like one of actually like the largest this burning of the codices is like one of the biggest losses of historical sources. This is the reason why we have so few sources, like why it took until the 1970s to reconstruct written Maya, is because so much Mayan writing was destroyed. And on top of that, Nahuatl hieroglyphics are so limited because we were basically just reduced to just a handful of codices that manage this, and so it's like, oh man, this is like one of the biggest sources of destruction of human history that has happened.
Catholic priests and the conquistadors. In Tudor England, during the schism between the Church of England and the Roman Catholic Church, depending on which monarch was arbitrarily in power and what religion they followed, your choice of religious book could get you murdered. It was not a good time. This was done, as French writer and historian Lucien X. Paulstrong explains in Books on Fire, because as the lawmakers of ancient China and the Nazis in Czechoslovakia decided, an educated people cannot be governed. Because the conquered peoples must change the history of their beliefs, like the Aztecs. Because only the illiterate can save the world. A common theme of the millenarian preachers of every era. Because the nature of a great collection of books is a threat to the new power. Historians point to Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin as the first book in the United States to experience a ban on a national scale. Many southern states flat out prohibited the sale of the book, stating that it stoked the flame.
It's so weird. Okay, so like so Uncle Tom's Cabin is like also one of those things that this is like, okay, if I were to make like a big list of like individual people who had massive impacts on history, but get like very little recognition for it, Harriet Beecher Stowe and Uncle Tom's Cabin is like one of the ones that does that, because like there's pretty decent evidence to show that Uncle Tom's Cabin, which by the way was like this sentimentalist novel, like this very emotionally flowery novel written in the mid 19th century, like I think it was like 1852 or something. And this book is about basically, it's about racism. It's about black, like living as a slave in America. It's not very accurate. It's not super well researched, but it's very emotional and very, very provocative story. So much so that it's actually like probably one of the books most responsible for creating a whole lot of white abolitionists who wanted slavery to end. Like a lot of people can trace that, who have cited that, like including like I think Abraham Lincoln at one point claimed that like Uncle Tom's Cabin is like one of the things that convinced a lot of like white moderates during the public discussion about slavery to come out against it. And yeah, the reaction to Uncle Tom's Cabin also really set off a lot of Southerners, and is one of like the things that really like turned up the temperature in the sort of road towards the American Civil War.
Of abolition, and Uncle Tom's Cabin is actually considered.
But not only is that that would be a novel about people of color and a WOMS and a like what's it called, and about a book. So there's like all those things together makes me think that it's like guaranteed that video, if I made it a step back video, no one would watch it. And so it's one of those things that sat on my list of videos to like make someday when I have so many subscribers that I can just say fuck you and I could just make whatever I want at that point.
One of the books that started the Civil War, which considering all the slave narratives is a hot take, but whatever. One place you could kind of call the Billboard Hot 100 of banned books is the Index Librorum Prohibitorium, or List of Prohibited Books. This was a list of books and other publications deemed heretical by the Vatican. If you were Catholic, you could not read this content without permission from a priest or a higher power. This included romantic texts, astronomy, science, and anything else the church saw as antithetical to their faith. Victor Hugo, over it. Copernicus and Galileo, canceled. Rousseau, you gotta go. Funny enough, Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species was not listed among the banned texts in question. Things that make it go, maybe they liked it. It was banned from the library of Trinity College, Cambridge, and in the United States kept out of many schools. In Tennessee, the book and teachings of evolution were banned until as late as 1967.
People in the chat are kind of talking about it. I'm like, you know what? I actually kind of like incensed and mad that, like, sometimes like that my Emma Goldman video I made because I was mad that I knew no one would watch it, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna make it anyway because it's important. God damn it! So I'm gonna write it down. I'm gonna write Uncle Tom's Cabin. Fuck yeah. You guys can't tell me. Just because it will hurt my channel and damage my career and harm my ability to make money doesn't mean I shouldn't do it, God damn it.
In Nazi Germany, the government burned thousands of books written by Jewish authors, communists, and anyone else considered other. Included were the works of Albert Einstein, Sigmund Freud, Ernest Hemingway, Helen Keller, Lenin, Jack London, Karl Marx, Upton Sinclair, Stalin, and Leon Trotsky. Those are political and religious reasons, but sometimes a book can get in trouble for being too risque. Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray is, according to literary professor Nicholas Frankel, one of the first novels in the English language to explore the nature of homoerotic and homosexual desire. Charles Whibley, mentee of W.E. Henley, the English poet, critic, and editor, who, fun fact, was also the inspiration for Long John Silver, reviewed Dorian as such. Mr. Oscar Wilde has again been writing stuff that were better unwritten. And while The Picture of Dorian Gray, which he contributes to Lippincotts, is ingenious, interesting, full of cleverness, and plainly the work of a man of letters, it is false art, for its interest is medico-legal. It is false to human nature, for its hero is a devil. It is false to morality, for it is not made sufficiently clear that the writer does not prefer a course of unnatural inequity to a life of cleanliness, health, and sanity.
Okay, I'm going to take a quick washroom break, and then we'll come back to this. So I'm going to put on some music for y'all, and I'll be back in just a second. Everybody, thank you for being so patient with me. Let me just get my camera back. Thank you very much. How How many of you guys stuck around? Oh, a fair few of you. Thank you. Alrighty. Let's continue on with this this video. Or is there anything cool that happened in chat? The Golden video was good. Do need to watch the ending, though. Yeah, the ending's when it gets all really serious.
Wilde has brains and art and style, but if he can write for none but outlawed noblemen and perverted telegraph boys, the sooner he takes to tailoring or some other decent trade, the better for his own reputation and the public morals.
Man, they're really struggling to get good audio from her house. This is what COVID has done, everybody.
Simple tailor. That's a Star Trek joke. Some people will like it. And this is in response to the edited version that Wells' publishers made, where, according to Frankel, they cut out 500 words from the original typescript without Wells' permission. When Wilde was put on trial for his homosexuality, or gross indecency officially as it was put, in 1895, his novel was used as evidence that led to his conviction. This prudishness sadly did not just exist for the posh Victorians. In America, we had Anthony Comstock, an anti-vice activist. He sounds fun. Comstock got Congress to pass the
Oh man, look at that guy. That's the face of a guy who fucks.
Law on March 3rd, 1873, which prohibited the mailing of pornographic materials. His definition of the term was murky at best. Anatomy textbooks, doctors' pamphlets on anything having to do with reproductive health, guess who that affected? Oscar Wilde, and even the Canterbury Tales were deemed too sexy to send through the mail.
Oh man, King Arthur, horny as fuck.
A bunch of cumstockery, I say, and also many others. I sadly did not coin that term. Amy Werbel.
Where do I submit videos to Reactor? You were kidding watching stream. I'll send you a link. It's on the Discord. Let me just put an invitation in the chat for you guys. So you go to this link, you sign up for the Discord, and there's a channel called the Reactor you can put stuff in.
Professor of the History of Art at the Fashion Institute of Technology, put it aptly. Comstock most typically engaged in direct censorship when he seized and destroyed materials to prevent their public circulation. Direct censorship in any society, no matter how repressive, is just one means through which discourse is limited. Concern about the possibility of censorship in many cases results in an unwillingness of artists and writers to risk producing potentially indictable work, resulting in self-censorship. As individuals respond to perceived limits in this manner, a new canon is formed, shaping the perception of what speech is considered to be normal or transgressive. This process of social censorship typically serves to amplify the voices of those who already hold power.
Damn. Amy Werbel. Awesome line. This process of social censorship typically serves to amplify the voices of those who already hold power. Good stuff.
And to reduce, marginalize, and silence the expressions of those who are vulnerable. Two legal cases that really helped move the conversation in a different direction were the United States versus One Book Called Ulysses in 1933 and R.V. Penguin Books in 1960. The United States versus One Book Called Ulysses centered around Irish author James Joyce's Ulysses, a book that I absolutely have read and completely respect.
So this is like a joke about the fact that Ulysses is this very long and meander. If I remember correctly, Ulysses is like this painstaking narration of a single day and is basically well known for being a very long and very hard to read book that everybody pretends they've read.
Court argued that the book was obscene, and Random House argued that the content was protected by the First Amendment. Judge John M. Woolsey stated that the novel was serious, and that Joyce was sincere and honest in using a stream of consciousness to explore the mentality of its characters. Subsequently, the book was finally allowed to enter the United States. In R.V. Penguin Books, the book in question was D.H. Lawrence's Lady Chatterley's Lover. which is a book about a noblewoman who has an affair with her gardener. Landscaping can be hot. During the trial, Mervyn Griffith Jones, the prosecutor, asked the jury to decide if the book was obscene and if it had enough literary merit. Would you approve of your young sons, young daughters, because girls can read as well as boys, reading this book? Is it a book you would have lying around your own house? Is it a book that you would even wish your wife or your servants to read? Wives and servants reading about pleasure? Gasp.
Ugh.
Gasp.
The worst.
Aldous Huxley, in a handwritten deposition to the defense team.
Yeah, as gamers have taught, Matt said, the real censorship is not in literature, but it is video game covers having less cleavage than they used to have.
Lady Chatterley's Lover is an essentially wholesome book that a beautiful and serious work of art should run the risk of being banned because its creator chose to make use of certain words that it is conventional to regard it as shocking. This is surely the height of absurdity. It seemed like the jury ultimately agreed with Huxley, and they voted that the book was not obscene. In 1973, with Miller v. California, the US Supreme Court finally tweaked its definition of obscenity. It went from that of utterly without social redeeming value to that which lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. Big difference. Huge. Today, LGBTQ books and books written by authors of color depicting the complexities of their lives are still often challenged. Banned Books Week was started in 1982 in response to the sudden surge in the number of challenges to books in schools, bookstores, and libraries. Additionally, every year the American Library Association puts out their list of the top 10 most challenged books. In 2019, 8 out of the 10 had to do with LGBTQ content. As Judith
that makes sense.
Cruz, one of the founders of Banned Books Week, put it, librarians are trained as librarians. We have absolutely no training or expertise in being censors. Our job and yours is not to limit the horizons of a child, be he 6 or 12, 10 or 20. Our jobs are to provide all the ammunition we possibly can to enable a child to expand his horizons. The right of any individual to read is an absolute necessity in a democratic society. Book banning is not about morality. It is about control, controlling the scope of the imagination and smothering it before it can truly grow. It is fine to expose children to complicated books, but doing so asks us to talk to children, not just lecture them, which people find difficult. If we start policing the quality of a book based on subjective moral ideologies, we're not doing anything. We should be conscious of the kind of work we expose children to, obviously, but banning books because they include LGBTQ families or because they talk candidly about the realities of marginalized existence ignores that there are children growing up in those families and those existences that need these books. Quoting from Krug again. Intellectual freedom is the right of any person to believe what
ahead of time so you don't have to deal with him. Is that just the full username? DOOVD? I will do that.
What he wants on any subject and to express his beliefs orally or graphically, publicly or privately as he deems appropriate. The ability to express one's opinions, however, does not really mean very much if there is not someone to hear what he is saying, to read what he is writing, or to view what he is producing through other.
Thank you for the future raid, by the way, Rakatansky. Much appreciated. Canadian solidarity.
Methods. And so the definition of intellectual freedom has a second integral part, and that is total and complete freedom of access to all information and ideas regardless of the medium of communication used. Information and ideas in turn give a man something to think about, to consider, to weigh prior to coming to his own opinion and decisions. Once these opinions and decisions are formed, and sometimes before, he too is free to express his beliefs.
And this video is good. It's long and has a lot of like people being quoted at length.
So we have a circle, and the circle breaks, however, if either the ability to produce or access the productions is stifled. So in life, we have a choice. Do we want to be Team Comstock or do we want to be Team Wild? Choose wisely.
Hey guys, so before you go, PBS Digital Studios and It's Lit want to hear from you. It is that time of the year again, and we have our annual...
Okay, well, that was fun. It's an important thing to cover, that's for sure. Because, yeah, like, you can talk about, like, the thing about, like, talking about censorship and stuff like that is that, like, it's been so dominated by, like, Nazis and the far right trying to preserve their right to oppress others. But we don't forget is that more often than not, censorship and oppression, like censorship of people's free speech is more often than not used to suppress political dissidents and marginalized people talking about their experiences. So, good to know. Alrighty. Well, I didn't want to click that button. Anyways. And thank you, Rocketansky, for following. Hello, everybody. My name is Tristan Johnson. I'm the host of the YouTube channels Step Back History and Tristan Won't Shut Up. Thank you all for coming. You guys are really awesome. Rocketansky is a solid bud. I make content about history and how history affects our lives, and what we're watching right now is The Reactor, which is a show I do on Fridays, which is actually, we're only going to be going for another 10 minutes or so. But it is, you know, it is a situation we are in right now. Or people send me links on the Discord, and I take a look at videos and such. It's pretty fun. But yes, much appreciated. Thank you, Rocketansky. Thank you for coming out. Ain, it's Birdie. Thank you. Happy to see you. What do you think? Do you think we should remove racist works from the libraries? To be honest, no. Maybe that puts me in opposition with a lot of people, but should they be like uncritically promoted? No. But like, I definitely think that for the sake of like history, that having things like, for example, like probably the two worst books, right, are like Mein Kampf and like the Turner Diaries, and for the sake of like the role that those two books are going to play in world history, like they should exist. And the thing is, if you're going to like look at them, you should definitely have like a preface and like have like a conversation about it. You can't just like, you know, have the books around with no context. But I'm definitely not for like just like refusing to let people look at something because it's hateful. Because I will say, as somebody who has been, as somebody who is in his 30s and has been left-wing for a very, very, very long time, I will say that censorship and free speech, or censorship, is more typically weaponized against the left than the right. And so I would rather have to deal with shitty things than have to deal with, you know, for example, a university department being taken down because they brought in a speaker that disagreed with the billionaire donors. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Hey, buffet time. Hope you're doing well. Thank you. You too. So yeah, thank you everybody for following. Thank you. Let me see how many people have followed. Thank you, Sinestry1, Dances with a Woos, Chloe B42, U.S. Army Water Sports, Galaspar, and Realm Knights. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining the Orc Gang and hanging out with us. We just watched a video on the history of banned books, and so we're having a bit of a talk about free speech and that kind of stuff. in German libraries, they can get Nazi books, but you have to like ask the librarian to get them from the back room. They're not just on display. That makes sense to me. Because like the thing is, like, you shouldn't just like a book like a book like Mein Kampf or the Turner Diaries. You can't just like give it to like young boys or young people in general with no introduction. That's not good. But you definitely like need to explain what they are before you give them to somebody. All right. So that was the thing we watched. The next one, now that I have all these wonderful new people coming, we're going to watch Data's session with Dr. Sigmund Freud from Star Trek The Next Generation. And let's see if this is at all entertaining.
She said cake. It is difficult to explain. Counselor Troy's body was a cake. Upper body.
Probably one of the best parts, one of the best weird shit that happened in Star Trek was when they turned Deanna Troi into cake. Fucking, I brought that one out back a few months ago when everyone was making jokes about everything being cake.
It describes a knife you used to cut the counselor. It had a black handle and a serrated blade, and it was quite long. How long?
Oh my.
25 centimeters in length.
Oh yeah, this episode. Yeah, it was a weird one.
One of the workmen pointed to her right shoulder. At that moment, I had an overwhelming urge to cut a piece out of the cake.
They turned Deanna Troi into cake. Yes, they did.
As I began slicing the cake,
neuropeptide cake with
as though I was
mint
causing
frosting.
Pain. Yet I could not stop cutting. That is when I woke up. Dr. Freud, I am curious. I am curious.
Is this before or after they give Data emotions? This is before.
Mean?
This is the episode where Data is trying to he's trying to experience dreams, but his dreams end up being very weird and violent.
I believe you are experiencing a classic dismemberment dream. Or, in your case, being a mechanical man, a dismantlement dream.
I do not understand.
Your mechanistic qualities are trying to reassert themselves over your human tendencies. Ego and id.
And should have Freud Star Trek. Oh yeah, they do this in Star Trek all the time with the holodeck episodes.
Symbolize the ever-present id, constantly working to destroy the ego. Now, the image of Counselor Troy, a female, is devoured by you, clearly indicating an unconscious desire to possess your own mother.
But I do not have a mother.
Do not interrupt. The knife, in its violent connotation, suggests a certain feeling of sexual inadequacy.
Just like your first video, yeah.
But I have no sexual desire.
Ah, impotence on top of everything. It is all becoming clear to me now.
It's all about sex with him.
There might be a paper in this.
I do not believe I'm being helped by this session.
Classic transference. Your anger toward me is, in fact, the animosity you feel toward your father. You are a polymorphously perverse individual, Mr. Data. And I recommend full psychoanalysis. I believe I can fit you in next Tuesday.
That will not be necessary. Computer, end program.
Hi, Phoebe. It's very close to Phoebe's dinner time, so she's getting very needy right now. All right, so let's see what we got next on the list, and see if this is too long. So we're gonna keep that. How about this one? Okay, Phoebe, please don't sit on the keyboard. All right, so we're gonna watch this video, and this is when you're watching TV while your parents aren't home. Partners in crime. Dog in China helps girl keep lookout so she can watch TV. I like it. I like where this is going. Oh, man. Yeah, getting temporarily blocked. Damn. Well, shoot. Alright, we're back. Cool. So this is about a dog. This is a dog who, what's it called? Who is a partner in crime for these kids. It's great. He's also a very good boy. She just bit me. She really wants food. But now you don't get any pets. He's later took him to see a delivery man. Okay. I've already lost virtually all my followers, or all of my viewers. You're gonna turn into a werecat, yeah. Man, this is such a good boy. Look at that dog. Aww. Nomi's parents are retired police dogs. Oh my. He snapped us out of existence. Oh no. Is that a radical reviewer? I feel like this dog, I don't know. I feel like radical reviewer was never a cop. It adjusts the fan for her. God damn. Such a good boy.
喜欢养狗狗嘛，然后也会从网上啊或者其他的渠道啊去学习一些养狗狗的，然后教他的一些方法吧。会的一些小技能还是比较多，像我们一起出去买菜呀，他会帮我们叼着小笼子，然后就是说，会那个帮我们拿遥控器啊，然后帮我们丢垃圾啊，这些小技能他都会。
That's so cute. Did they blur the dog's dick in that one shot? I don't know.
没想到大家都蛮喜欢的，然后我们也蛮开心的，然后也比较意外。
That was a good feeling after talking about burning books and
我们家的
such.
那个女儿，然后家狗狗，以后的话，还会经常拍的，因为大家既然这么喜欢他们的话，然后也会。 后续也会拍一些视频跟大家一起分享。
So true. Dog dick censorship is the worst in the world. Okay. Well, we are at 4:59, but we're like, seconds left until 5 o'clock. And then I gotta repair my voice, feed these cats, and get ready for D&D tonight, actually. So thank you guys for coming out. That was really fun. Let us... Who are we going to raid? I'm going to raid... Yeah, let's raid No Comment Chick. That's always fun. So let's get that going. But yeah, it's been a great week with you guys. Thank you for another wonderful week of of content. And I'll be back on Monday for the Monday Discourse with me and Mulder, as far as I know. So please take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Have a good weekend.